First edition published by I2I Hype, LLC 2024. Copyright 2024 by Win Valentine. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored, or transmitted in any form by any means, electronic, mechanical, photocopying, recording, scanning, or otherwise without written permission from the publisher. It is illegal to copy this book, post it to a website, or distribute it by any other means without permission. This novel is entirely a work of fiction. The names, characters, and incidents portrayed in it are the work of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events or localities is entirely coincidental. Win Valentine asserts the moral right to be identified as the author of this work. Designations used by companies to distinguish their products are often claimed as trademarks. All brand names and product names used in this book and on its cover are trade names, service marks, trademarks, and registered trademarks of their respective owners. The publishers in the book are not associated with any product or vendor mentioned in this book. None of the companies referenced within the book have endorsed the book. Chapter 1: The Shattered Star. Holly hummed a festive tune as she looped garlands of sparkling pine around the counter of her bakery, the gingerbread hearth. The scent of freshly baked sugar cookies wafted through the air, mingling with the evergreen aroma. Her pointed witch hat sat slightly askew, a smudge of flour on the brim from her morning's work. She stepped back, eyeing the arrangement critically. A twist of her fingers and a sprinkle of magic dusted the garlands with a soft glow, like fresh snow under moonlight. Satisfied, she turned her attention to the towering Christmas tree in the corner, its branches adorned with ornaments that shimmered and spun, each one enchanted by a different resident of Merry Hollow. The bell above the door jingled as Mrs. Clausberry, the town's elderberry winemaker, bustled in. "Morning, Holly. The place looks charming." "Thanks, Mrs. C, just putting the final touches on for the enchanted ornament exchange tonight." Holly smiled, tucking a stray curl back into her ponytail. Mrs. Clausberry held up a small, intricately carved ornament shaped like a wine bottle. "I've brought my contribution. It's filled with a drop of last year's vintage. Should bring a bit of cheer to whoever takes it home." Holly took the ornament, her fingers tingling with the magic infused within. "This is wonderful. I'm sure it'll be a hit." She hung it on the tree, where it swayed gently, casting a warm, inviting glow. The door swung open again, admitting a gust of cold air and Jack Frost, his ice-blue eyes scanning the room. "Holly, a word?" His voice was as crisp as a winter's morning. Holly raised an eyebrow, noting the seriousness in his tone. "Of course, Jack. What's on your mind?" She brushed her hands on her apron, leaving streaks of flour. Jack stepped closer, lowering his voice. "It's about the exchange. I've been hearing whispers, something strange is going on." Holly's green eyes met his, her curiosity piqued. "Strange? In what way?" Jack leaned in, his breath frosting slightly in the air. "Ornaments going missing, enchantments fizzling out, and I swear I saw someone lurking around your bakery last night." Holly's brows furrowed, her festive mood dampening. "We can't have that. Not with the exchange tonight." She untied her apron, her mind already racing with plans. "Let's find out what's going on." Holly and Jack stepped out of the gingerbread hearth, the bell chiming a cheerful farewell. The cobblestone streets of Merry Hollow bustled with activity as residents prepared for the enchanted ornament exchange. Across the square, Mr. Pinecone, the town's gruff yet kind-hearted tree-keeper, directed a chorus of evergreens. Their branches swayed in harmony, adorning themselves with shimmering lights and tinsel. He caught Holly's eye and nodded, his beard bristling with pine needles. Next door, Mistress Marzipan sculpted intricate figurines from almond paste, her fingers dancing with magic. She placed each one on her windowsill, where they came to life, skating and sledding across the sugar-spun scene. In the town square, Mayor Sugarplum oversaw the construction of a grand ice sculpture. At his command, a team of enchanted nutcrackers carved and chiseled, their movements precise and synchronized. The mayor beamed, his round cheeks rosy with excitement. Jack watched, his breath misting in the crisp air. Quite the spectacle, isn't it? Holly smiled. Mary Hollow knows how to put on a show. They passed Mrs. Gingersnap's dance studio, where tiny sugarplum fairies pirouetted in the window. Their laughter tinkled like bells, drawing giggles from Holly and Jack. Further down, Mr. Candy Cane twisted red and white stripes around lampposts, his hands moving deftly. He winked at Holly, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Evening, Holly." "Jack." The scent of peppermint filled the air as they approached Mr. Chocolatier's shop. Inside, he poured molten chocolate into molds, creating delicate ornaments that hardened instantly, gleaming with edible magic. Holly's heart swelled with pride and joy. This was her town, her family. She'd do anything to protect them, to keep their spirit alive. As they neared the town hall, Jack paused, his gaze fixed on the towering Christmas tree. Its stars sparkled brilliantly, casting prisms of light across the square. "It's magnificent," he murmured. Holly looked at him, then at the tree. "It is. And it's our job to make sure it stays that way." Determination steeled her voice. Jack met her gaze, a silent agreement passing between them. Together, they'd unravel the mystery threatening Mary Hollow, ensuring the town's magic endured. But for now, they'd enjoy the festivities, drawing strength from the community's shared cheer. Holly and Jack slipped into the town hall, the hum of excited chatter filling the air. The enchanted ornament exchange was about to begin, and every seat was filled with eager residents. At the front, Mayor Kringle stood by a podium, his rotund figure draped in a velvet suit trimmed with white fur. He cleared his throat, and the room hushed. "Welcome, welcome, dear friends." Mayor Kringle's voice boomed, his cheeks rosy with cheer. "Tonight, we gather not just to exchange ornaments, but to celebrate our unity, our magic, and our love for Mary Hollow." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "This year marks the centennial of our beloved town. 100 years of eternal Christmas, of joy and warmth amidst the snow. But tonight, we must also remember the true source of our magic, each other." Holly leaned forward, the mayor's words resonating within her. She glanced at Jack, his ice blue eyes reflecting the twinkling lights of the hall. He met her gaze, a small smile playing on his lips. "Our founders," Mayor Kringle continued, "created this haven with a vision of peace and harmony. They harnessed the power of ancient winter spirits, binding them to our town, to create an eternal Christmas." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Holly's brows furrowed, a nagging unease settling in her stomach. She'd never heard this version of Mary Hollow's history. "But with great power comes great responsibility," the mayor said, his voice solemn. "We must never forget that our magic is a gift, one that requires balance and respect." He clapped his hands, the sound echoing through the hall. "And now, let the exchange begin. May each ornament bring joy, warmth, and a touch of magic to your homes." The room erupted in cheers. Holly and Jack exchanged a glance, the mayor's words hanging heavy between them. The history of Mary Hollow ran deeper than they'd known, and the truth seemed shrouded in a chill not even Jack's magic could dispel. As residents began to mingle, Holly turned to Jack. "We need to find out more about these winter spirits. If they're the source of our magic." Jack nodded, his expression serious. "Then they might be the key to solving our mystery." Their conversation paused as Mrs. Clausberry approached, her ornament cradled in her hands. Holly, dear, would you like to start the exchange? Holly offered a warm smile, pushing her concerns aside for the moment. Of course, Mrs. C, let's spread some cheer. As Holly reached for the ornament, the lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the hall. Gasps echoed through the room, and Holly's heart pounded. Something was amiss, and it seemed the night would bring more than just festive cheer. The town hall buzzed with excitement as Mayor Kringle took the stage, the celestial star cradled in his hands. The ornament pulsed with a soft, ethereal light, casting a warm glow over the assembled crowd. Holly stood near the front, Jack by her side, their earlier conversation temporarily set aside in favor of the evening's festivities. Friends, Mayor Kringle began, his voice booming through the hall, tonight, we light the celestial star, a symbol of our unity, our magic, and our eternal Christmas spirit. May it shine brightly, guiding us through another joyous year. He raised the star, the room hushed in anticipation. Holly held her breath, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The star's light intensified, its glow enveloping the mayor, casting his round figure in a shimmering silhouette. Suddenly, a crack echoed through the hall. The light flickered, and gasps rippled through the crowd. Holly's eyes widened as she watched a thin fissure spread across the star's surface. Mayor Kringle faltered, his grip tightening around the ornament. What's happening? He murmured, his gaze darting to Holly, then to Jack, a silent plea for help. Jack stepped forward, his hands outstretched, ice-blue eyes focused on the star. A chill swept through the room, his magic attempting to stabilize the fracturing ornament. But the crack deepened, the light pulsing erratically. Holly joined him, her hands hovering near the star. She drew upon her own magic, the scent of gingerbread and pine filling the air. Together, she whispered, her voice steady despite the panic rising within her. Their magics intertwined, a dance of ice and warmth, sugar and spice. For a moment, the star's light steadied, hope flickering in the mayor's eyes. But then, with a sharp, resonating crack, the celestial star shattered. Shards of crystal rained down, the light extinguishing, casting the hall into darkness. Screams filled the air, the room erupting into chaos. Holly stood frozen, shock coursing through her veins. The symbol of Mary Hollow's magic, their eternal Christmas spirit, lay in pieces at her feet. Jack's hand found hers, his grip firm, grounding. Holly, he said, his voice barely audible over the commotion. We need to find out who did this. Her eyes met his, determination replacing the shock. She nodded, her resolve strengthening. The mystery they'd been chasing had just become a matter of life and death for Mary Hollow. And she would not let her town down. Chaos erupted in the town hall. Ornaments, once gleaming with festive magic, now careened wildly through the air. A nutcracker marching band clattered to life, their drumbeats echoing like thunder as they stomped across the floor, sending residents scrambling. Watch out! Holly shouted, dodging a rogue candy cane that whizzed past her ear. She turned to Jack, her eyes wide with alarm. We need to contain this. Now. Jack nodded, his hands already weaving intricate patterns in the air. Ice crystals formed, attempting to encapsulate the rogue ornaments. But the enchanted objects resisted, their magic clashing with Jack's frost. A sugarplum fairy zipped past Holly, its wings leaving a trail of sparkling stardust. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the tiny figure. A jolt of sweet magic surged through her, and the fairy slowed, its flight path wavering. Holly's brows furrowed, an idea sparking in her mind. Jack, we need to counter their magic, not just contain it. She scanned the room, her gaze landing on the refreshment table laden with festive treats. Sugar magic. We use their own power against them. Jack glanced at the table, understanding dawning in his eyes. You take the lead. I'll back you up. Holly dashed to the table, her hands hovering over the platters of cookies, cakes, and candies. She could feel their magical potential, each treat humming with a unique enchantment. She grabbed a handful of peppermint bark, the sharp scent filling her nostrils. "Freeze," she commanded, crushing the bark in her fist. A wave of cool, tingling magic washed over the room. The Nutcracker band faltered, their movements slowing as ice crept up their wooden limbs. Jack followed her lead, his hands dancing with frost as he amplified Holly's spell. The Nutcrackers ground to a halt, frozen in mid-march. Emboldened, Holly turned her attention to a cluster of spinning dreidels. She snatched a gingerbread man from the table, its soft form pulsing with warm, comforting magic. "Calm," she whispered, crumbling the cookie between her fingers. The dreidels wobbled, their spin slowing until they toppled over, their wild dance subdued. Across the room, a group of panicked residents huddled together, their eyes wide as they watched the spectacle. Holly's heart ached for them, for the fear and confusion that gripped her beloved town. She couldn't let this chaos continue. She reached for a candy cane, its stripes swirling with soothing magic. She snapped it in half, the sound sharp and decisive. "Peace," she murmured, the magic flowing from her fingertips, a gentle wave washing over the room. The remaining ornaments settled, their wild dance calmed, the chaos quelled. Holly surveyed the hall, her breath coming in quick gasps. The ornaments were subdued, but the townsfolk were shaken. She turned to Jack, his ice blue eyes reflecting the now still decorations. "We did it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But their relief was short-lived. A sudden gust of wind swept through the hall, carrying with it a chill that cut through Holly's festive sweater. The lights flickered, and an eerie whisper echoed through the room. The voice was cold, malevolent, and filled with a dark power that sent shivers down Holly's spine. "Fools," it hissed. "You cannot contain what you do not understand." As the eerie whisper faded, the town hall doors burst open, and in marched the Kringle clan. Led by the formidable Kristoff Kringle, the family strode in, their red and green velvet cloaks billowing behind them. Their boots, polished to a mirror shine, echoed sharply against the wooden floor, silencing the room. Kristoff, his beard as white as fresh snow, scanned the hall, his gaze landing on Mayor Kringle. "Cousin," he acknowledged, his voice booming. "We've heard of the situation. We're here to take control." Mayor Kringle, still shaken, straightened his waistcoat. "Kristoff, I assure you, we have everything under." Kristoff silenced him with a wave. "Under control? The celestial star is shattered, ornaments are running amok, and you think you have it handled?" He turned to his clan, a group of stern-faced men and women. "Secure the perimeter. Contain any rogue magic. We can't have this chaos spreading." Holly stepped forward, her green eyes sparkling with determination. "With all due respect, Mr. Kringle, we've already contained the ornaments. Jack and I." Kristoff's gaze shifted to Holly, then to Jack. His eyes narrowed, taking in Jack's shimmering blue coat. "Jack Frost, isn't it? I've heard whispers about you. An outsider meddling in Mary Hollow's affairs." Jack met Kristoff's gaze, his voice steady. "I'm here to help, not meddle." Kristoff scoffed. "We'll see about that. In the meantime, the Kringle clan will handle this. We have the experience, the magic, and the bloodline." Holly's brows furrowed, her hands clenching at her sides. "Bloodline? This isn't about ancestry, it's about Mary Hollow. Our home. We all have a stake in protecting it." Kristoff's expression softened slightly, but his voice remained firm. "Be that as it may, we can't have amateurs running the show. Not with the stakes this high." He turned to his clan, issuing orders. "Search the hall for any remaining rogue magic. I want a full report on the stars shattering. And someone find out who's behind this." As the Kringle clan fanned out, Holly turned to Jack, her voice low. "We can't just stand by. We need to find out who, or what, is behind this. Jack nodded, his ice blue eyes reflecting the shimmering lights of the hall. Agreed. But we need to be smart about it. Let the Kringles handle the cleanup. We'll focus on the investigation. Holly looked around the hall, her gaze landing on the shattered remnants of the celestial star. She leaned down, carefully picking up a shard. It pulsed with a soft, warm light, resonating with a magic that felt both familiar and strange. The star, she murmured, holding up the shard. It's not just broken. It's changed. We need to find out why. Jack's gaze met hers, understanding passing between them. As the Kringle clan bustled around them, they slipped away, their minds set on unraveling the mystery that threatened their town. The star's shattering was more than just a malfunction, it was a message. And Holly was determined to decipher it. Holly and Jack shared a determined look, their resolve strengthening as they prepared to take action. The celestial star's shattering was a mystery that needed solving, and they were the ones to do it. We need to find out more about the star, Holly said, her voice low. There's something strange about the way it broke, and I think it's connected to the chaos in the town. Jack nodded, his ice blue eyes scanning the hall. Agreed. But where do we start? The star is ancient, and its magic is intertwined with Mary Hollow's history. Holly's gaze fell on the town library, its tall, arched windows casting a warm glow into the night. The library, she said, her voice filled with conviction. If there's any information about the star, we'll find it there. Jack followed her gaze, a small smile playing on his lips. Lead the way, Holly Evergreen. I have a feeling we're about to uncover some long-forgotten secrets. As they made their way through the town, the snow crunching beneath their boots, Holly couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She glanced over her shoulder, her eyes scanning the shadows, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Do you feel that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Like someone's following us? Jack's gaze swept over the town, his senses heightened. I don't see anyone, but I'll keep an eye out. We can't be too careful. They reached the library, its doors creaking open as they stepped inside. The warmth of the building enveloped them, the scent of old books and beeswax candles filling the air. Holly led the way to the history section, her fingers trailing over the spines of the leather-bound volumes. Here, she said, pulling a heavy tome from the shelf. This is the history of Mary Hollow. It should have information on the star. They settled at a table, the book opened between them. Holly's eyes scanned the pages, her brows furrowing as she read. It says here that the celestial star was created by the first inhabitants of Mary Hollow, using the magic of the trapped winter spirits. It was meant to harmonize their powers, creating a balance that would sustain the town's eternal Christmas. Jack leaned closer, his gaze fixed on the text. And what happens if that balance is disrupted? Holly's eyes widened as she read the next passage. It says that if the star is broken, the spirits will be released, their powers unleashed in a chaotic storm that could destroy Mary Hollow. Jack's eyes met hers, the gravity of the situation settling between them. Then we need to find a way to repair the star before it's too late. Holly nodded, her determination unwavering. We'll need to find the pieces, and figure out how to restore the star's magic. But first, we need to find out who, or what, broke it in the first place. As they delved deeper into the history of Mary Hollow, the weight of their task settled upon them. The celestial star was more than just a symbol of their town's magic, it was the key to their survival. And it was up to Holly and Jack to unravel the mystery and save Mary Hollow from the chaos that threatened to consume it. Holly and Jack slipped away from the commotion, their minds focused on the task at hand. The celestial star's shattering was more than just a malfunction, it was a message. And they were determined to decipher it. As they made their way through the town, the snow crunching beneath their boots, Holly couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She glanced over her shoulder, her eyes scanning the shadows, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Do you feel that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Like someone's following us? Jack's gaze swept over the town, his senses heightened. I don't see anyone, but I'll keep an eye out. We can't be too careful. They reached the town square, the great Christmas tree looming above them. The once bright lights now flickered erratically, casting eerie shadows across the snow. Holly's gaze fell on the shattered remnants of the celestial star, its pieces scattered around the base of the tree. We need to find the other pieces, she said, her voice filled with determination. The star's magic is too powerful to leave scattered. If someone finds them. Jack nodded, his ice blue eyes scanning the area. Agreed. We'll split up and search the town. Meet back here in an hour. As they parted ways, Holly couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in her stomach. The celestial star's shattering was more than just a mystery, it was a threat to everything she held dear. And she was determined to protect Mary Hollow, no matter the cost. Holly searched the town, her eyes scanning the snow for any sign of the missing star pieces. She found one lodged in the branches of a nearby tree, its light pulsing weakly. As she reached for it, she heard a rustling in the bushes behind her. She spun around, her heart pounding, but saw nothing. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. It's just the wind, she whispered to herself. But as she turned back to the tree, she caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of her eye. She whirled around, her eyes narrowing as she spotted a figure darting between the buildings. Hey, she shouted, her voice echoing through the empty streets. Stop! The figure paused, then darted away, disappearing into the shadows. Holly took off after them, her heart pounding as she chased the mysterious stranger through the town. She followed them to the edge of town, where the snow-covered forest loomed. The figure disappeared into the trees, and Holly hesitated, her breath coming in quick gasps. She knew the dangers that lurked in the forest, the creatures that prowled the shadows. But she couldn't let the stranger get away. Not when they might hold the key to the celestial star's shattering. She took a deep breath, then plunged into the forest, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of the mysterious figure. The trees loomed above her, their branches casting eerie shadows across the snow. She could hear the distant howl of a wolf, the rustle of leaves as the wind picked up. She followed the footprints in the snow, her heart pounding as she ventured deeper into the forest. The darkness closed in around her, the shadows growing longer and more menacing. She could feel the magic of the forest, the ancient power that hummed beneath the surface. And then, she saw it, a faint glow, pulsing in the distance. She quickened her pace, her heart racing as she approached the source of the light. As she rounded a bend, she saw the figure standing before her, their back turned. They held a piece of the celestial star, its light pulsing in their hand. Stop! Holly shouted, her voice echoing through the forest. That's the property of Mary Hollow. The figure turned, their face hidden in the shadows. And then, they spoke, their voice cold and mocking. Mary Hollow's property? I think not. The celestial star belongs to the one who can control its power. And that, my dear, is not you. Holly's eyes widened as the figure stepped forward, their face illuminated by the star's light. It was Christoph Kringle, his eyes gleaming with a dark, malevolent power. You? Holly gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. But why? Christoph's lips curled into a cold, cruel smile. Why? Because the celestial star is the key to Mary Hollow's magic. And with its power, I can control the town, and everyone in it. Holly's heart pounded as she stared at Christoph, her mind racing. She couldn't let him have the star's power. She had to stop him, no matter the cost. She reached for her magic, the warmth of her baking magic surging through her veins. She focused on the piece of the star in Christoph's hand, her magic reaching out to it. But as she touched the star, a jolt of energy surged through her, knocking her back. She cried out, her vision blurring as she hit the ground. Kristoff laughed, his voice echoing through the forest. You foolish girl. You can't defeat me. I am the true heir of Mary Hollow, the one who will rule its magic. Holly struggled to her feet, her vision swimming as she stared at Kristoff. She couldn't let him win. She had to find a way to stop him. And then, she heard it, the sound of footsteps crunching in the snow. She turned, her eyes widening as she saw Jack approaching, his ice magic swirling around him. Jack, she cried, her voice filled with relief. He's got the star's power. We have to stop him. Jack's eyes narrowed as he stared at Kristoff, his magic surging. Leave it to me, he said, his voice cold and determined. He charged forward, his ice magic slamming into Kristoff. The two men clashed, their magic sparking as they fought for control of the star's power. Holly watched, her heart pounding, as Jack and Kristoff battled. She could feel the power of the star, the ancient magic that surged through the forest. And she knew that whoever controlled that power would control Mary Hollow's fate. She reached for her magic, her baking magic surging as she joined the fight. She focused on the piece of the star in Kristoff's hand, her magic reaching out to it. And then, she felt it, a surge of power, a connection to the star's magic. She could feel its energy, its ancient wisdom. And she knew that she could use that power to stop Kristoff. She focused her magic, her baking magic melding with the star's power. She could feel the energy building, the magic surging through her veins. And then, she released it, her magic slamming into Kristoff. He cried out, his grip on the star's piece faltering as he stumbled back. Jack took advantage of the moment, his ice magic surging as he struck Kristoff again. The force of the blow sent Kristoff flying, the piece of the star slipping from his grasp. Holly caught it, her magic wrapping around it as she held it tight. She could feel the star's power, the ancient magic that surged through her veins. And she knew that she could use that power to restore the star, to save Mary Hollow. She turned to Jack, her eyes shining with determination. We have to fix the star, she said, her voice filled with conviction. We have to save Mary Hollow. Jack nodded, his ice blue eyes meeting hers. Together, he said, his voice filled with warmth. Chapter 2, A Joyful Beginning. Holly and Jack hurried back to Holly's bakery, the warmth inside a stark contrast to the biting cold of the forest. The scent of gingerbread and peppermint filled the air, a comforting reminder of the town's festive spirit. Holly locked the door behind them, her eyes scanning the street outside before she turned to Jack. We need to figure out what's going on, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She placed the piece of the celestial star on the counter, its light pulsing gently. Kristoff said the star controls Mary Hollow's magic. If that's true, we need to understand how it works, and fast. Jack nodded, his ice blue eyes reflecting the star's glow. I've heard legends about the celestial star, but I never thought it was real. It's said to be the source of all Christmas magic, the heart of winter itself. Holly leaned against the counter, her brows furrowed in thought. If Kristoff wants to control the star's power, he must have a way to harness it. We need to find out what that is and stop him. Jack paced the bakery, his fingers tapping against his chin. The star's magic is ancient, predating even my time. We need to delve into Mary Hollow's history, find any records or artifacts that might help us understand it better. Holly's eyes widened. The town archives. They're kept in the library basement. If there's anything about the star, it'll be there. Jack stopped pacing, his expression serious. We need to be careful, Holly. If Kristoff finds out we're onto him, he won't hesitate to strike back. We can't let him know we're investigating. Holly nodded, her jaw set with determination. We'll be discreet. But we can't waste time. The enchanted ornament exchange is in chaos, and who knows what Kristoff will do next. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch comforting. We'll figure this out, Holly. Together. Holly looked up at him, her green eyes meeting his. She smiled, her resolve strengthening. Together, she agreed. Now, let's get to the library. We've got some research to do. Holly and Jack slipped out of the bakery, their breath misting in the chilly air. The streets were eerily quiet, the usual festive buzz replaced by a tense hush. They hurried towards the library, their footsteps crunching on the freshly fallen snow. As they turned a corner, Jack suddenly stopped, his hand shooting out to halt Holly. Look, he said, pointing towards the ground. A faint glow emanated from the snow, shimmering like stardust. It stretched out in a thin line, disappearing around another corner. Holly crouched down, her fingers hovering over the luminescent trail. It's warm, she murmured, her eyes widening. And it's pulsing with magic. This must be from the celestial star. Jack nodded, his expression grave. The star shattered into 12 pieces. If each fragment leaves a trail like this. Holly stood up, her eyes following the glowing path. We need to find the other fragments before Kristoff does. If he gets his hands on all of them, there's no telling what he could do. Jack took her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. We'll follow the trail, gather the fragments, and keep them safe. But we need to be careful. Who knows what kind of magic each piece holds? They set off, the magical trail guiding them through the winding streets of Merry Hollow. The glow intensified as they approached the town square, the epicenter of the chaos. The great Christmas tree stood tall and proud, but its lights flickered uncertainly, reflecting the town's disarray. Holly hesitated at the edge of the square, her eyes scanning the anxious crowd. We can't just walk in there and start searching for fragments. People are on edge, and Kristoff's men are everywhere. Jack squeezed her hand, a small smile playing on his lips. Then we'll have to be clever about it. How about a distraction? Holly raised an eyebrow, a playful glint in her eyes. What do you have in mind? Jack grinned, his ice blue eyes sparkling with mischief. Leave that to me. You just be ready to follow the trail as soon as the coast is clear. Holly and Jack skirted the edge of the town square, their eyes locked on the glowing trail. It wove between the legs of chattering townsfolk, oblivious to the magical path in their midst. The scent of hot cocoa wafted through the air, growing stronger as they approached Ginger Snapdragon's stand. The line of customers stretched long, each clutching their mugs, eager for a taste of Ginger's famous brew. Jack paused, his gaze scanning the crowd. We need to get to the front without drawing attention. Holly nodded, a plan forming in her mind. She whispered, I'll create a distraction. You slip behind the stand and follow the trail. Before Jack could respond, Holly stepped forward, her hands weaving a spell. She murmured under her breath, her fingers sparking with magic. Suddenly, a chorus of tiny bells jingled overhead, drawing every eye upward. A flurry of snowflakes danced in the air, each one shimmering like a tiny star. The crowd oohed and awed, their attention diverted. Jack seized the moment, slipping through the crowd with the grace of a winter breeze. He ducked behind the hot cocoa stand, his eyes following the luminescent path. It led straight to the counter, where Ginger was ladling out steaming mugs of cocoa. Ginger, a plump woman with rosy cheeks and a warm smile, didn't notice Jack at first. She hummed a festive tune, her hands moving with practiced ease. Jack crouched down, his fingers brushing the snow. The trail ended abruptly at the base of the stand, the glow pulsing gently. He looked up, his eyes meeting Ginger's as she turned to grab more mugs. She jumped, her hand flying to her chest. Jack Frost. You nearly gave me a heart attack. Jack offered a charming smile, hoping to disarm her. Sorry, Ginger. I was just admiring your stand. It's quite impressive. Ginger raised an eyebrow, her gaze flicking to the glowing trail. Impressive enough to bring you snooping around back here? Jack's smile faded, replaced by a serious expression. Ginger, have you noticed anything strange lately? With your stand, or your magic? Ginger's eyes narrowed, her grip tightening on the ladle. What are you implying, Jack? Before Jack could respond, Holly appeared at the counter, her eyes wide with feigned excitement. Ginger, I heard your cocoa is extra magical today. Mind if I try a cup? Ginger's expression softened, her attention shifting to Holly. Of course, dear. Coming right up. As Ginger turned to pour the cocoa, Holly mouthed to Jack, anything? Jack nodded subtly, his eyes flicking to the base of the stand. Holly followed his gaze, her brow furrowing as she spotted the glowing trail. She leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. We need to find out if Ginger knows something. Jack nodded, his mind racing. They needed to tread carefully, but time was running out. The celestial star's magic was pulsing stronger, its light growing brighter. Whatever was happening, they needed to unravel the mystery before it was too late. Ginger handed Holly a steaming mug, the rich aroma of chocolate and peppermint filling the air. There you go, dear. Careful, it's hot. Holly took a sip, her eyes widening as the magical cocoa danced on her tongue. Ginger, this is amazing. Ginger harumphed, but her cheeks flushed with pride. It's just a little something I whipped up. Now, what's all this about magical trails and strange happenings? Jack leaned against the counter, his voice low. We think something's gone wrong with the celestial star. Its magic is acting up, and we're trying to figure out why. Ginger raised an eyebrow, her gaze flicking to the glowing trail. And you think my cocoa stand has something to do with it? Before Jack could respond, a sudden gust of wind swept through the square. The Christmas tree's lights flickered wildly, and the ornaments began to sway. A nearby snowman toppled over, its carrot nose rolling across the cobblestones. Ginger scowled, her hands on her hips. What in the name of Saint Nick is going on? Holly pointed to the hot cocoa stand, her eyes wide. Look! The stand's awning was pulsing with light, the glow matching the celestial star's shimmer. Suddenly, the mugs on the counter began to rattle, their contents bubbling and frothing. A jet of cocoa shot up like a fountain, splattering a nearby elf with chocolate. Ginger gasped, her hands flying to her cheeks. My cocoa! It's gone wild. Jack stepped back, his eyes scanning the chaotic scene. The star's magic must be affecting it. We need to contain this before it gets out of hand. Holly set her mug down, her fingers weaving a spell. She murmured under her breath, her hands glowing with a soft green light. The cocoa fountain began to shrink, the chocolate flowing back into the mugs. Ginger watched, her mouth agape. Well, I'll be. You've got some skill, Holly. Holly smiled, her cheeks flushing with the compliment. Thanks, Ginger. Now, let's see if we can figure out what's causing this. As the last of the cocoa settled, the stand's awning stopped pulsing. The Christmas tree's lights returned to their normal twinkle, and the ornaments stilled. Holly and Jack exchanged a relieved glance, the crisis averted for now. Ginger sighed, her grumpy demeanor returning. Well, that was a mess. Now, what do you need from me? Jack leaned in, his voice serious. We need to know if you've noticed anything unusual lately. Anything that might be connected to the celestial star. Ginger pursed her lips, her brow furrowing in thought. Now that you mention it, there's been something odd going on with my cocoa. It's been sparkling. Holly's eyes widened. Sparkling? Like the star's magic? Ginger nodded. Exactly like that. And it's been happening more and more lately. I thought it was just a fluke, but now. She trailed off, her gaze flicking to the glowing trail. Jack's eyes narrowed, his mind racing. We need to find out why the star's magic is affecting your cocoa. There must be a connection somewhere. Holly nodded, her determination renewed. We'll figure this out, Ginger. We promise. Ginger harumphed, but her eyes softened. I hope so, dear. I don't want my cocoa causing any more chaos. As they spoke, a sudden commotion drew their attention. A group of townsfolk had gathered nearby, their voices raised in concern. Holly and Jack exchanged a glance, their investigation momentarily forgotten. What's going on over there? Holly asked, her brow furrowing. Ginger squinted, her eyes scanning the crowd. Looks like trouble. You two better go see what's happening. Holly and Jack nodded, their senses on high alert. They hurried towards the commotion, leaving Ginger to clean up the cocoa mess. As they approached the crowd, the sound of raised voices grew louder, the tension palpable. A familiar voice cut through the din, its tone sharp and demanding. I insist on knowing what's going on here. Holly and Jack exchanged a knowing glance. Kristoff Kringle was at the center of the commotion, his eyes blazing with anger. This couldn't be good. Holly and Jack pushed through the crowd, the tension growing with each step. Kristoff stood at the center, his face a mask of outrage, holding a small, glowing object aloft. It pulsed with a warm, golden light, a fragment of the celestial star. Where did you find that? Holly demanded, stepping forward. Kristoff turned, his eyes narrowing as he recognized her. Ah, Holly Evergreen. Always the inquisitive one. I found this little gem hidden away in a rather unusual place. Jack's gaze sharpened, his voice cool. And where might that be? Kristoff smirked, enjoying the attention. In a cocoa bean, of all things. Ginger Snapdragon's special reserve, I believe. Ginger gasped from behind her stand, her hand flying to her mouth. My cocoa beans? But how? Holly's mind raced, pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. The joy fragment. It must have been drawn to Ginger's cocoa because of the happiness it brings to everyone. Jack nodded, his eyes meeting Holly's. That's why her cocoa was acting up. The fragment's magic was amplifying its effects. Kristoff scoffed, his grip tightening on the fragment. Yes, very clever. But the real question is, why are these fragments scattered across town? And what are you two going to do about it? Holly stepped closer, her voice steady. We're going to find them all and restore the celestial star. And you're going to hand over that fragment, Kristoff. A murmur rippled through the crowd, eyes widening at Holly's boldness. Kristoff's smirk faded, his expression turning calculating. And if I refuse? Jack's voice was like ice, his power flickering in his eyes. Then we'll have a problem, won't we? The air crackled with tension. Kristoff's gaze flicked between Holly and Jack, weighing his options. Suddenly, he laughed, the sound forced and harsh. Very well. I have no use for a single fragment. But mark my words, if you two can't handle this, I will step in. He tossed the fragment to Holly, who caught it deftly. The golden light pulsed in her hand, warm and inviting. She nodded, her resolve unshaken. We'll handle it, Kristoff. You can count on that. As Kristoff stalked away, the crowd dispersed, the tension dissipating. Holly looked down at the fragment, her eyes filled with determination. 1 down, 11 to go. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch reassuring. We'll find them, Holly. Together. Ginger approached, her expression a mix of awe and concern. I can't believe that was in my cocoa bean. What can I do to help? Holly smiled, grateful for the support. Keep an eye out for anything unusual, Ginger. And spread the word. We need everyone in Mary Hollow to be on the lookout for these fragments. Ginger nodded, her resolve firming. You can count on me, dear. We'll find those fragments and save our town. As Ginger returned to her stand, Holly turned to Jack. We should get back to the bakery and examine this fragment. Maybe it can give us a clue about the others. Jack agreed, his gaze scanning the square. The sooner we find them, the sooner we can restore the star and bring balance back to Mary Hollow. Holly cradled the golden fragment, its pulsating light casting a warm glow on her face. She led the way back to her bakery, Jack close behind, their breaths misting in the crisp air. The townsfolk parted for them, murmurs of encouragement and hope trailing in their wake. Inside the bakery, the comforting scent of gingerbread and sugar enveloped them. Holly set the fragment on the counter, its light reflecting off the gleaming surfaces. She reached out, her fingers hovering over the glowing shard. Be careful, Jack cautioned, his eyes fixed on the fragment. Holly nodded, her fingertips brushing the warm surface. A surge of raw, unfiltered joy coursed through her, like 1,000 happy memories condensed into a single moment. She gasped, her eyes widening as the sensation overwhelmed her. Laughter bubbled up from deep within, spilling out in a melodious sound that filled the room. Jack stepped closer, concern etched on his face. Holly? Are you all right? She turned to him, her eyes sparkling with unshed tears of joy. It's incredible, Jack. I can feel it, the happiness, the warmth. It's like every wonderful Christmas memory rolled into one. Jack tentatively reached out, his hand covering hers on the fragment. His eyes widened as the joy hit him, a grin spreading across his face. He laughed, the sound rich and genuine, blending with Holly's in a harmonious duet. The bakery seemed to respond to their laughter, the strings of lights twinkling brighter, the scent of sweets growing stronger. The gingerbread men on the counter began to dance, their little frosting smiles widening as they joined in the merriment. Holly and Jack looked at each other, their laughter subsiding, leaving them with grins that couldn't be contained. The fragment's power was intoxicating, a pure distillation of holiday spirit that filled every corner of the room. This is just one fragment, Holly breathed, her eyes reflecting the golden light. Imagine the power of the entire star. Jack's grin faded, his expression growing thoughtful. And imagine the chaos if that power falls into the wrong hands. Their smiles faded as the weight of their task settled back onto their shoulders. The fragment's joy was a reminder of what they were fighting for, but also a warning of what they stood to lose. Holly gently slid the fragment into a small velvet pouch, the glow dimming as she pulled the drawstring tight. She looked at Jack, her resolve renewed. We need to find the other fragments before it's too late. Jack nodded, his eyes meeting hers. Together. Holly tucked the velvet pouch into her pocket, the fragment's warmth radiating through the fabric. She looked at Jack, her expression serious. We need to find the other fragments. Can you sense them? Jack closed his eyes, his brows furrowing in concentration. His ice magic pulsed, a chill sweeping through the bakery. Holly shivered, her breath misting in the sudden cold. After a moment, Jack's eyes snapped open, a mix of awe and concern within them. They're everywhere, Holly. Scattered across Mary Hollow like pieces of a puzzle waiting to be put together. Holly's eyes widened, the magnitude of their quest dawning on her. We need to find them all. Before someone else does. Jack nodded, his gaze distant as he focused on the fragment signals. Each one has a unique signature. Joy, peace, love, hope, they're all out there, calling to us. Holly reached out, her hand squeezing his. We'll find them, Jack. Together. The bakery's lights flickered, the strings of holiday bulbs blinking in a sudden, erratic pattern. A high-pitched whine cut through the air, growing louder and more insistent. Holly clapped her hands over her ears, her eyes scanning the room. "What's happening?" she shouted over the noise. Jack's gaze sharpened, his voice barely audible. "It's a magical alarm. Something's triggered it." The whine reached a crescendo, then abruptly cut off. The lights steadied, their glow pulsing gently. Holly lowered her hands, her heart pounding. What set it off? Jack's eyes met hers, a sense of urgency passing between them. Another fragment. "It's close, Holly. And it's in trouble." Chapter 3, Icy Reunions. Holly's eyes widened, urgency sparking in their depths. "We have to go. Now." She grabbed her coat, Jack doing the same, their movements mirroring the ticking clock in their minds. They rushed out of the bakery, the doors slamming shut behind them. The town square was a whirlwind of activity, but Holly and Jack cut through the chaos, their path clear and determined. They hurried past the carolers, their voices rising in a discordant chorus, the usual harmony disrupted by the night's events. "Where are we going?" Holly asked, her breath coming in quick puffs, visible in the chilly air. Jack's stride was sure, his eyes scanning the area. "The ice skating pond. The alarm, it's coming from there." They veered off the main path, taking a shortcut through the candy cane forest. The striped trees towered above them, their peppermint scent sharp and invigorating. Holly's heart pounded in her chest, her senses heightened by the adrenaline and the fragment's lingering joy. The forest thinned, revealing the shimmering expanse of the magical ice skating pond. The surface was smooth as glass, reflecting the moonlight and the colorful strings of lights draped around the edge. But tonight, something was off. The lights flickered sporadically, casting eerie shadows on the ice. Holly stepped onto the pond, her boots echoing hollowly. She felt a hum beneath her feet, a pulsating energy that resonated with the fragment in her pocket. "It's here, Jack. Somewhere." Jack joined her, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the area. "There," he pointed towards the center of the pond. A faint glow emanated from beneath the ice, pulsing in time with the hum. They exchanged a look, then hurried towards the light. The ice was slick, but their steps were sure, driven by purpose. As they neared the center, the glow intensified, the hum growing louder. Suddenly, the ice beneath them cracked, a jagged line snaking out from the glow. Holly gasped, her arms flailing as she struggled to keep her balance. Jack reached out, his hand grasping hers, steadying her. "Careful," he warned, his eyes never leaving the growing fissure. The ice groaned, the sound ominous in the otherwise silent night. The glow pulsed brighter, the hum reaching a fever pitch. Something was happening, and it wasn't good. Holly looked at Jack, her eyes reflecting the eerie light. "We need to get to the fragment before it's too late." The ice groaned again, but Holly and Jack held their ground, their focus locked onto the pulsating glow. Suddenly, a figure swept past them, a blur of green and gold, executing a perfect figure eight on the ice. Jack stiffened, his eyes narrowing. "Evergreen," he breathed, the name escaping like a secret. The skater came to a graceful halt a few feet away, his cloak settling around him in a shimmering cascade. Evergreen Frost was a mirror image of Jack, except for his golden hair and the mischievous glint in his eyes. Well, he drawled, a smirk playing on his lips. "Look what the blizzard blew in." Jack's jaw tightened, his voice cool. "What are you doing here, Evergreen?" Evergreen chuckled, his breath misting in the cold air. "Same as you, I imagine. Chasing after magical fragments, trying to save the day." His gaze flicked to Holly, his smirk deepening. "And who's this? A new partner in crime?" Holly stepped forward, her chin lifting. "Holly Evergreen. And I'm not a partner in crime. I'm here to save Mary Hollow." Evergreen's eyebrows shot up. "Evergreen? Really?" He laughed, a sound like crackling ice. Jack, you've been busy. Jack's hands clenched at his sides, the air around him dropping a few degrees. This isn't the time, Evergreen. We need to get to the fragment before something worse happens. Evergreen's smile faded, his eyes hardening. Always the responsible one, aren't you, Jack? Never a moment for fun, never a thought for yourself. Jack's voice was a low growl. This isn't about fun, Evergreen. This is about protecting people. Something you wouldn't understand. Evergreen's eyes flashed, and he stepped closer, the ice cracking under his blades. You don't know what I understand, Jack. You left, remember? Left me to deal with everything. The tension between them was palpable, the air thick with unspoken words and old wounds. Holly stepped between them, her voice firm. We don't have time for this. Whatever happened between you two, it needs to wait. We have to work together. Evergreen looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then, with a sigh, he nodded. Fine. But don't think this is over, Jack. The ice beneath them groaned again, a harsh reminder of the urgency at hand. Holly looked between Jack and Evergreen, her expression resolute. We need to work together. Now, how do we get to the fragment? Jack's gaze flicked to Evergreen, a silent challenge. Evergreen rolled his eyes but nodded. Fine. I'll stabilize the ice. You two make a run for the fragment. Evergreen skated backwards, his hands weaving intricate patterns in the air. Frost spread out from his blades, reinforcing the cracking ice. The groaning subsided, replaced by a soft, crystalline hum. Holly turned to Jack, her eyes reflecting the pulsating glow beneath the ice. Ready? Jack nodded, his hand finding hers. Together, they stepped forward, their strides synchronized. The ice held, Evergreen's magic keeping it solid despite the growing pressure from below. As they neared the center, the glow intensified, casting their shadows long and stark behind them. Holly could feel the fragment's power, a soft, calming pulse that resonated with her own magic. She squeezed Jack's hand, her heart pounding in her chest. They reached the center, the ice now a thin barrier over the churning water below. The fragment, a shard of ice shaped like a dove, hovered just beneath the surface, its wings beating in slow motion. Holly knelt, her hand hovering over the ice. She could feel the fragment's power, a soothing coolness that seeped into her bones. She looked up at Jack, her eyes wide. It's the peace fragment. I can feel it. Jack crouched beside her, his breath misting in the cold air. Can you retrieve it? Holly nodded, her focus turning inward. She tapped into her own magic, the sweet, warm power of her baking spells merging with the cool tranquility of the fragment. The ice beneath her hand began to melt, a perfect circle widening to reveal the churning water below. The fragment rose, drawn to her magic. It hovered for a moment, its wings beating softly, before settling into her outstretched hand. The pulse of power intensified, then softened, merging with her own magic. Holly looked up, her eyes meeting Jack's. A soft smile played on her lips. We did it. Behind them, Evergreen let out a sigh, his shoulders slumping slightly. Great. Now can we get off this blasted pond before the ice decides to give way again? Holly and Jack shared a look, then nodded. As one, they turned, ready to make their way back to safety. But the ice beneath them had other plans. A sharp crack echoed through the air, and suddenly, they were falling, the world dissolving into a chaotic blur of cold and darkness. The ice shattered, plunging Holly, Jack, and Evergreen into the frigid waters below. Holly gasped, the shock of the cold stealing her breath. She kicked hard, her limbs heavy with the weight of her sodden clothes. Above her, the fractured ice glowed with an eerie light, the fragment's power pulsing through the water. Jack was a blur of motion beside her, his ice magic already at work. He carved a path through the water, crystalline walls rising around them, guiding them towards the surface. Evergreen, despite his initial surprise, was quick to react. He skated along the underside of the ice, his blades leaving trails of frost that reinforced Jack's makeshift tunnel. Holly's lungs burned, her body aching with the need for air. She focused on the light above, her arms and legs churning through the water. The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, the surface impossibly far away. Suddenly, a groaning sound echoed through the water, the ice above them shifting ominously. A chunk of ice broke free, tumbling towards them. Holly's eyes widened, her heart pounding in her chest. Jack reacted instantly, his hands thrusting outwards. A wall of ice materialized, blocking the falling chunk. It shattered against the barrier, the impact sending shockwaves through the water. Holly was thrown back, her body slamming into the side of the tunnel. Evergreen skated towards her, his hand reaching out. "Holly!" His voice was muffled, the water distorting the sound. She grabbed his hand, her fingers clinging tightly as he pulled her back onto the path. They pushed on, the light above growing brighter. Holly's lungs screamed for air, black spots dancing at the edges of her vision. Just as she thought she couldn't hold out any longer, they broke through the surface, gasping for breath. The pond was a chaotic mess, the once smooth ice now a jagged landscape of floating chunks and treacherous gaps. The fragment's power had unleashed a storm of magical obstacles, icicles raining down from above, snow globes materializing out of thin air, their enchantments sending out blasts of cold and light. Holly, Jack, and Evergreen huddled together, their breaths misting in the frigid air. The ice beneath them groaned, a deep rumble that resonated through their bodies. Holly looked around, her eyes wide with alarm. "We need to get out of here. Now." Jack nodded, his gaze scanning the chaos. "Follow me. Stay close, stay alert." They set off, their movements synchronized, their senses on high alert. Ice shards whizzed past them, embedded with flickering lights that exploded on impact, sending out showers of sparks. Holly ducked, her heart pounding as a shard narrowly missed her, its explosion sending a wave of heat washing over her. Evergreen skated ahead, his blades carving a path through the chaos. He spun, his cloak flaring out, deflecting a barrage of icicles. Jack followed, his hands weaving intricate patterns, walls of ice rising to block the oncoming projectiles. Holly brought up the rear, her hands glowing with a soft, warm light. She focused her magic, the air around her filling with the scent of gingerbread and sugar. She thrust her hands out, sending forth a wave of magical energy. The enchanted sweets materialized in midair, intercepting the incoming obstacles, neutralizing their magic with bursts of sweet, sparkling light. They dodged and weaved, their path a zigzag of quick turns and sudden stops. The ice beneath them shifted constantly, gaps opening and closing, forcing them to jump, slide, and skate in a desperate dance of survival. An icicle the size of a small tree crashed down in front of them, blocking their path. Jack's hands flew up, a wall of ice rising to meet the falling projectile. The impact sent a shockwave rippling outwards, the ice beneath them cracking and groaning. Holly looked around, her heart sinking as she realized they were surrounded. Icicles, snow globes, and enchanted sweets littered the ice, their combined magic creating a barrier of chaos and destruction. She turned to Jack, her eyes reflecting the frenzied lights. "What now?" Jack's jaw tightened, his gaze flicking between the obstacles. "We fight. Together." Evergreen skated to their side, his eyes gleaming with determination. "For Merry Hollow." Holly, Jack, and Evergreen fought side by side, their magic intertwining, creating a dance of light and ice against the chaotic backdrop. Just as they seemed to gain the upper hand, Evergreen suddenly vanished, his cloak fluttering to the ground like a discarded shadow. Jack faltered, his ice wall crumbling as he spun around, searching. "Evergreen?" His voice echoed, a desperate call swallowed by the storm. Holly steadied him, her hand on his arm. Jack, we have to keep moving. She scanned the area, her senses on high alert. No sign of Evergreen, only the relentless barrage of enchanted obstacles. They fought their way back to the shore, the ice groaning and cracking beneath them. As they reached solid ground, Jack looked back, his eyes filled with worry. He's gone. Again. Holly touched his cheek, her glove warm against his cool skin. We'll find him. But first, we need to get back to town. Regroup. Jack nodded, his jaw tight. They trudged through the snow, the town square coming into view, a beacon of light and warmth amidst the chaos. The magical assault had subsided, the fragment's powers seemingly exhausted for now. Holly broke the silence, her voice gentle yet firm. We need a plan. The fragments are scattered, and now Evergreen's disappearance, it's all connected. Jack's gaze was distant, his mind clearly racing. Evergreen wouldn't just leave. Not like this. Holly squeezed his hand, her voice reassuring. We'll figure it out. Together. Let's go back to the bakery, gather our thoughts. Maybe there's something in your research, a clue we missed. Jack looked at her, his eyes reflecting the town's lights. You're right. We need to strategize. And I need to tell you about Evergreen, about our past. Holly nodded, her expression softening. I'm here to listen, Jack. Whatever you need. They walked in silence, their strides synchronized. The town was quieter now, the earlier panic subsiding into an uneasy calm. As they reached the bakery, Holly paused, her hand on the door. We'll find him, Jack. And we'll fix this. Mary Hollow needs us. Jack managed a small smile, his eyes meeting hers. With you by my side, Holly, I believe anything is possible. They stepped inside, the warmth of the bakery enveloping them, a stark contrast to the cold chaos outside. The scent of gingerbread and sugar filled the air, a comforting reminder of Holly's magic. As the door closed behind them, they prepared to face the challenges ahead, their bond stronger than ever. Chapter 4, Sweet Revelations. Back at Holly's bakery, the warmth and familiar sense of sugar and spice enveloped them, a stark contrast to the cold chaos outside. Holly led Jack to the kitchen, her mind racing with plans and possibilities. Let's start with the basics, Holly said, tying her apron around her waist. The love fragment could be anything, but it's likely something that brings people together. Jack nodded, leaning against the counter. Makes sense. So, what do we do? Holly began pulling out ingredients, her hands moving with practiced ease. We bake. It's what I do best, and maybe my magic can help us find a clue. She cracked eggs into a bowl, her green eyes focused. As she reached for the sugar, her hand paused, a strange tingling sensation running up her arm. The sugar bowl trembled, and suddenly, a burst of sparkling light erupted from it, sending crystals flying like tiny comets. Jack ducked, his eyes wide. Holly, what's happening? Holly stared at her hands, her heart pounding. I don't know. My magic, it's never done this before. The kitchen erupted into chaos. Whisks spun like tops, mixing bowls clattered to the floor, and ingredients exploded into clouds of flour and spice. Holly's hands glowed brighter, streams of sparkling sugar dancing through the air like ribbons. Jack tried to dodge the magical mayhem, but a rogue gingerbread man leaped onto his shoulder, its tiny hands tugging at his hair. Holly, a little help? Holly reached out, trying to control the magic, but it only intensified. The gingerbread man multiplied, a small army of them now swarming Jack. He batted them away, his eyes locked on Holly. You're getting stronger. Maybe too strong. Holly's breath hitched, her eyes scanning the chaos. She spotted a small, glowing object amidst the madness, a candy cane, shining like a beacon. She reached for it, her hand closing around the cool peppermint stick. Instantly, the chaos subsided, the sugar magic retreating like a wave pulling back from the shore. In the sudden silence, Holly held up the candy cane, her eyes wide. Jack, look. It's glowing. Jack brushed gingerbread crumbs from his shoulders, his gaze fixed on the candy cane. You think that's the love fragment? Holly nodded, a slow smile spreading across her face. I think it is. And I think my magic just led us to it. Holly held the glowing candy cane aloft, her eyes wide with wonder. The kitchen, once a whirlwind of chaos, now hummed with a gentle magic. Sugar clouds floated like tiny, sparkling zeppelins, casting shimmering reflections on the walls. Gingerbread men, previously rampaging, now marched in neat rows, their tiny hands linked as they sang a sweet, high-pitched carol. Jack, still brushing crumbs from his shoulders, watched in disbelief. Holly, what exactly is going on? Holly chuckled, her green eyes dancing with amusement. I think my magic is evolving. She waved the candy cane like a conductor's baton, and the sugar clouds dipped and swayed in response. It's like they're waiting for instructions. Jack raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing on his lips. Well, tell them to clean up this mess. My hair is still full of gingerbread. Holly laughed, turning to the gingerbread men. All right, little ones. Let's tidy up. The gingerbread men saluted, their tiny chocolate button eyes gleaming with determination. They scurried about, righting toppled mixing bowls and sweeping flour into neat piles. The sugar clouds descended, absorbing spilled ingredients and leaving surfaces sparkling clean. Jack watched, his expression a mix of amusement and awe. You know, I never thought I'd say this, but those are some impressive baking skills. Holly beamed, her cheeks flushing pink. Thanks, Jack. I think it's the love fragment. It's amplifying my magic, making it more playful. As the last of the mess disappeared, the gingerbread men lined up, their tiny hands clasped behind their backs. The sugar clouds hovered nearby, pulsing gently with light. Holly clapped her hands, delighted. You've all done beautifully. Thank you. The gingerbread men bowed, their tiny mouths curving into smiles. Suddenly, one of them broke ranks, leaping onto the counter and snatching a sprinkle from a nearby jar. It tossed the sprinkle into the air, where it exploded into a miniature firework, showering the kitchen with sparkles. Jack laughed, ducking as another sprinkle whizzed past his ear. I think they're celebrating. Holly giggled, trying to dodge the impromptu fireworks. All right. That's enough, little ones. We still have work to do. The gingerbread men sighed but complied, returning to their neat rows. The sugar clouds floated gently to the ground, dissolving into a fine, shimmering powder. Holly turned to Jack, her eyes sparkling with newfound confidence. Ready to find the next fragment? She asked, holding out her hand. Jack took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. With you, Holly, I'm ready for anything. Holly and Jack stepped out of the bakery, the glowing candy cane tucked safely in Holly's pocket. The town square bustled with a mix of cleanup and celebration, the magical chaos slowly being tamed by the townsfolk. Holly led Jack towards the enormous Christmas tree, its lights twinkling despite the earlier commotion. I've always loved this tree, Holly said, her breath misting in the crisp air. It's the heart of Merry Hollow. Jack nodded, his gaze tracing the tree's towering form. It's magnificent. I've never seen anything like it. Holly smiled, her eyes reflecting the multicolored lights. That's because it's not just a tree. It's a symbol of our unity, our magic. She reached out, touching a low-hanging branch. The needles shimmered under her touch, and a soft hum filled the air. Holly's eyebrows furrowed, her expression turning from nostalgic to curious. Jack, there's something strange. Jack stepped closer, his hand hovering near hers. "What is it?" Holly closed her eyes, her fingers wrapping around the branch. A pulsing. Like a heartbeat. The hum intensified, and suddenly, a small compartment slid open in the tree trunk, revealing a hidden nook. Inside lay a yellowed envelope, tied with a faded red ribbon. Holly gasped, her eyes widening as she carefully retrieved the envelope. "What is that?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Holly untied the ribbon, her fingers trembling slightly. "It's a letter. And it's addressed to my mother." She carefully pulled out the parchment, her eyes scanning the elegant, looping handwriting. Jack leaned in, his gaze following the words as Holly read aloud. "My dearest Alara. The winter winds whisper your name, and the frost paints your likeness on the windows. I find myself drawn to Mary Hollow, not just by the magic that binds our families, but by the love that binds our hearts. Our families have kept the secret of the celestial star for generations, but I fear the time of peace is ending. The star's power wanes, and with it, the balance of our worlds. I believe our union can restore that balance, uniting the magic of ice and warmth, of frost and hearth. Meet me by the pond under the mistletoe, where we first shared our dreams. Together, we can face the future, whatever it may hold. Yours eternally, Crystalius Frost." Holly's voice trailed off, her eyes meeting Jack's. The shock in his ice blue gaze mirrored her own. "Jack, this means our families were connected. And they knew about the celestial star." Jack nodded, his jaw tightening. "And it means the problems with the star might be deeper than we thought." Holly folded the letter, her mind racing. "We need to find out more. And we need to find the rest of the fragments." Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm and reassuring. "Together, Holly. We'll do it together." As they stood there, under the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree, the weight of their family's secrets settling on their shoulders, the town square hummed with a newfound energy. The letter had revealed a piece of the past, a clue to the present, and a promise for the future. And with that promise, Holly and Jack took their first steps into the unknown, their hands entwined, their hearts united. Holly's fingers traced the elegant handwriting, her heart pounding with each word. Jack leaned in, his breath misting slightly in the chill air, his focus entirely on the parchment. The world around them seemed to fade, the bustle of the town square reduced to a distant hum. "This changes everything," Holly murmured, her gaze meeting Jack's. The ice blue of his eyes seemed warmer, softer, reflecting the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree. Jack nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "It means our families were connected. And that the star's power has been waning for a long time." Holly's hand trembled slightly as she held the letter, her thumb brushing against a small, hard lump within the folds. She gasped, her eyes widening. "Jack, there's something here." Carefully, she unfolded the parchment, revealing a small, glowing shard nestled within. It pulsed with a soft, warm light, casting a rosy hue on their faces. The love fragment, radiant and pure, lay in Holly's palm, its magic palpable. Jack reached out, his fingers brushing against Holly's as he touched the fragment. A spark ignited at their touch, a jolt of warmth that sent a shiver down Holly's spine. Their eyes locked, the world around them fading into insignificance. The magic of the fragment swirled around them, drawing them closer, their breaths mingling in the cold air. Holly's heart pounded, her eyes searching Jack's. There was a tension between them, a pull that was more than just the magic of the fragment. It was a connection, a bond that had been growing stronger with each moment they spent together. Jack's hand cupped Holly's cheek, his thumb gently tracing her jawline. His eyes held a question, a hope that mirrored her own. Holly leaned in, her lips parting slightly, her heart fluttering with anticipation. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing sound cut through the air, shattering the moment. The magical alarm, a discordant jangle of bells, echoed through the town square. Holly and Jack jumped apart, the love fragment pulsing brighter in Holly's hand. Holly's eyes widened, her heart still pounding, but now with a different kind of urgency. "The next fragment," she breathed, her gaze scanning the square. Jack nodded, his expression shifting from soft to determined. "We need to find it. Now." Without another word, they rushed into the crowd, the glowing love fragment clutched tightly in Holly's hand, their moment of connection put on hold by the pressing needs of their quest. The town square bustled with activity, the alarm echoing through the air, a call to action that neither Holly nor Jack could ignore. Their personal revelations would have to wait, Mary Hollow needed them. Holly and Jack rushed out of the bakery, the magical alarm still ringing in their ears. The town square was a flurry of activity, residents scurrying about, their breaths misting in the crisp air. Above them, the sky swirled with snowflakes, each one glowing softly, pulsing in time with the alarm. Holly clutched the love fragment, its warmth seeping into her palm. She scanned the square, her green eyes searching for any sign of the next fragment's trail. Jack stood close, his ice blue gaze sweeping the crowd, his body tense and ready. Suddenly, a streak of silver light shot across the square, weaving between the townsfolk, leaving a shimmering trail in its wake. Holly's heart leapt. "Jack, look!" They sprinted after the light, dodging villagers and holiday displays. The light led them away from the square, down winding cobblestone streets adorned with festive wreaths and garlands. Holly's lungs burned, her breath coming in quick puffs, but she pushed on, Jack matching her stride. The light turned sharply, disappearing into a narrow alley between two gingerbread houses. Holly and Jack followed, their footsteps echoing off the sugary walls. The alley opened into a small courtyard, where the silver light hovered, pulsing gently. Holly slowed, her eyes scanning the courtyard. A tall, frosted Christmas tree stood in the center, its branches adorned with delicate ice ornaments. Around the tree, a circle of stone benches sat, each one carved with intricate snowflake patterns. Jack approached the tree, his breath fogging in the chill air. He reached out, his fingers brushing against one of the ice ornaments. It chimed softly, a pure, crystalline sound that echoed through the courtyard. Holly joined him, her eyes reflecting the dancing lights of the ornaments. "This place, it's beautiful," she murmured. Jack nodded, his gaze locked on the ornaments. "And powerful. Can you feel it?" Holly closed her eyes, her senses reaching out. There was a hum in the air, a subtle vibration that resonated with the magic within her. She opened her eyes, her gaze meeting Jack's. "Yes. I think the fragment is here." The silver light pulsed brighter, darting towards the tree. It circled the trunk, then shot upwards, disappearing into the branches. Holly and Jack exchanged a determined look, then began their search, their hands carefully sifting through the icy needles, the hum of magic guiding their way. Chapter 5, Riddles of Hope. Holly's fingers brushed against an ice ornament shaped like a delicate snowflake. It pulsed with a soft glow, resonating with the magic humming in the air. She carefully plucked it from the branch, holding it up to the light. The ornament sparkled, casting tiny rainbows onto the snow beneath. Holly and Jack hurried through the snowy streets of Mary Hollow, following the pulsing magical trail that seemed to dance just beyond their reach. It led them to a gingerbread schoolhouse, its windows aglow with a warm, inviting light that spilled onto the sparkling snow below. The scent of sweet ginger and molasses filled the air, transporting Holly back to her childhood days spent within those very walls. She could almost hear the laughter of her classmates and the gentle hum of magic that accompanied their lessons. "The Sugarplum Academy," Holly whispered, her breath visible in the chilly air. "I haven't been here since I was a little girl." Her eyes scanned the intricate icing details on the building's facade, each one a testament to the magic and care that went into its creation. The candy cane pillars and sugar spun eaves were just as she remembered, evoking a sense of nostalgia and warmth. A sudden blur of silver wings whizzed past their faces, leaving a trail of shimmering glitter in its wake. The pair blinked in surprise, trying to clear their vision. They brushed away the sparkling remnants, their eyes adjusting to the sudden burst of light. Well, well, well. If it isn't Holly Evergreen and Jack Frost. A tiny voice chirped, drawing their attention upward. They looked up to see a fairy no taller than Holly's hand, hovering before them with a mischievous grin. Her gossamer wings shimmered with delicate frost patterns, catching the light like tiny crystals. She wore a pointed hat adorned with jingle bells that tinkled softly as she moved, her eyes sparkling with a mix of curiosity and amusement. "Tinsel glitter wing," Jack said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Still causing chaos in the classroom, I see?" Tinsel grinned wider, revealing a set of pointed teeth that gleamed like tiny icicles. "It's not chaos, it's creativity," she insisted, crossing her arms over her chest. "Now, what brings you two to my domain?" She tilted her head, her eyes gleaming with interest as she awaited their response. Holly explained their quest for the fragments, the urgency in her voice evident. Tinsel's eyes sparkled with excitement and mischief as she listened intently, her wings fluttering softly as she absorbed every word.
"Oh.
"A treasure hunt." "Well, you've come to the right place," she said, clapping her hands together. "But nothing comes easy in my school. You'll have to solve my holiday riddles to find what you seek." With a flourish, she conjured a scroll of parchment that unfurled before them, covered in glittering script. The words shimmered and danced on the page, as if alive with magic. Holly and Jack exchanged a glance, a mix of determination and anticipation passing between them. "I'm round as a ball, but not a toy. I smell of spices and holiday joy. What am I?" Holly read aloud, her brow furrowed in concentration. The scent of ginger and cinnamon seemed to intensify around them, as if the very air was filled with the spirit of the holidays. Jack's eyes narrowed as he considered the riddle, his breath misting in the cold air. He paced back and forth, his boots crunching softly in the snow. "A gingerbread cookie," he ventured after a moment, his voice filled with conviction. Tinsel cackled with delight, her laughter like tiny bells ringing. "Correct. But that's just the warm-up. Follow me." She darted off, her wings leaving a trail of sparkling stardust in her wake. Holly and Jack rushed to keep up, their hearts pounding with excitement and anticipation. They chased the fairy through winding hallways decorated with children's artwork, each piece a colorful explosion of creativity and magic. The walls were adorned with paintings of snowmen, reindeer, and festive trees, each one a unique expression of the young artist's imaginations. At each turn, Tinsel presented a new riddle, each one more challenging than the last. The air was filled with the scent of pine and the faint hum of magic, as if the very walls were alive with enchantment. "We're sisters 5, in a row we stand. Together we form a helping hand," Tinsel recited, gesturing to a display of knitted items that seemed to dance and sway in an unseen breeze. The mittens, scarves, and hats were a vibrant array of colors, each one imbued with a sense of warmth and love. Holly's eyes scanned the display, her mind racing as she considered the riddle. She thought back to her own childhood, to the countless hours spent knitting and crafting with her friends. "Gloves," she exclaimed suddenly, her face lighting up with realization. 5 fingers, like sisters coming together to help. As they solved each puzzle, fragments of history unfolded before them like a tapestry woven with threads of time. They learned of the Kringle clan's arrival in Merry Hollow, their rise to power, and whispers of a long-buried secret that seemed to echo through the hallowed halls of the academy. Each riddle brought them one step closer to the truth, their hearts pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Finally, they reached a classroom filled with twinkling lights and the scent of fresh pine. Tinsel fluttered to a shelf lined with children's craft projects, each one a unique expression of their creator's imagination. The room was filled with a sense of wonder and possibility, as if the very air was alive with the magic of creation. "Your final challenge," she announced, her voice filled with anticipation. I'm made of paper, glue, and dreams. Inside, the spirit of hope gleams. Holly's eyes widened as she scanned the shelf, her heart pounding in her chest. She took in the array of crafts before her, each one a testament to the power of imagination and the magic of the holidays. She pointed to a small, lumpy snowman made of cotton balls and popsicle sticks, its lopsided grin seeming to radiate warmth and joy. "There," she cried, her voice filled with triumph. "That's it." Holly gingerly picked up the cotton ball snowman from the shelf, its lopsided grin seeming to widen as if encouraging her. As she turned it over in her hands, a gentle glow emitted from within, pulsing with a warmth that seemed to resonate with her own magic. She carefully opened the base, exposing the hope fragment tucked inside, its edges sparkling like the first light of dawn. "Bravo!" Tinsel applauded, her tiny hands clapping together with a sound like distant sleigh bells. "You've shown yourselves worthy of the fragment. But tell me, do you understand why you're truly gathering these pieces?" Jack's brow furrowed, his ice blue eyes reflecting the glow of the fragment. "To restore the celestial star and preserve Mary Hollow's magic, of course. Isn't that the point of this whole quest?" Tinsel's expression grew serious, an unusual sight for the playful fairy. Her wings, usually a blur of constant motion, stilled as she landed softly on a nearby shelf. "Is that what they told you?" "Oh, my dears, there's much more to this story than meets the eye." She fluttered closer, her voice lowering to a whisper, barely audible above the hum of magic in the room. "The celestial star isn't just a decoration. It's a key to something far more powerful and perilous than you can imagine. It's a secret that's been kept for generations, buried beneath the snow and smiles of Mary Hollow." Holly and Jack exchanged concerned looks, the weight of Tinsel's words settling over them like a heavy snowfall. "What do you mean?" Holly asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What kind of secret?" Tinsel sighed, her wings drooping slightly, casting shadows on the shelf below. "The star was created to seal away an ancient force, a winter spirit so powerful it threatened to plunge the world into eternal night. The founders of Mary Hollow trapped it here, using the star to harness its power for good. But even good intentions can have dark consequences." Jack's eyes widened, the realization dawning on him like the first light of a winter morning. "Are you saying that by breaking the star, we've dash?" "Not yet," Tinsel interjected, her voice firm despite her small size. "But with each fragment you collect, you're one step closer to unlocking that seal. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Will you blindly follow the path laid out before you, or will you forge a new one?" Holly clutched the fragment tighter, its edges digging into her palm as if anchoring her to the present. "But if we don't restore the star, Mary Hollow's magic will fade. We can't let that happen. The town, the people, they need this magic to survive." Tinsel nodded gravely, her eyes reflecting the glow of the fragment. "True. But perhaps there's another way, a way to save Mary Hollow without risking the release of something far worse. You'll need to delve deeper into the town's history, uncover the truths the Kringle clan has concealed for generations. The answers won't be easy to find, but nothing worth finding ever is." The fairy's eyes sparkled with a mix of mischief and worry, like the first and last light of a winter's day. "Remember, not all that glitters is gold, or in this case, not all that sparkles is kind magic. Be cautious who you trust, and always question why things are the way they are. Sometimes, the truth is hidden in the coldest, darkest places." Jack carefully lifted the craft, his fingers brushing against Holly's as he took the snowman from her. As he turned it over, a soft glow emanated from within, casting dancing shadows on their faces. He gently pried it open, revealing the shimmering hope fragment nestled inside, its light pulsing like a heartbeat, echoing the rhythm of their own. As Holly and Jack left the Sugarplum Academy, the weight of Tinsel's revelations hung heavy in the air between them. They walked in silence, their footsteps crunching softly in the fresh snow, each lost in their own thoughts about the true nature of their quest. The twinkling lights of Mary Hollow's town square came into view, and with it, the annual gift drive set up near the base of the great Christmas tree. Normally a scene of cheerful activity, something seemed off tonight. Holly nudged Jack, nodding towards a group of elves huddled near the donation boxes, their whispers carrying an urgent tone. "That's odd," Holly murmured, her brow furrowing. "The gift drive should have ended hours ago." Jack's ice-blue eyes narrowed as he observed the scene. "And those aren't the usual volunteer elves. I don't recognize any of them." As they watched, one of the elves produced a small, glowing orb from his pocket. He waved it over the gift boxes, causing them to shimmer briefly before returning to normal. The group then began hastily loading the boxes onto a waiting sleigh, their movements furtive and rushed. "They're enchanting the gifts," Jack whispered, his voice tight with concern. "But for what purpose?" Holly's hand instinctively tightened around the hope fragment in her pocket. "We need to find out what they're up to. This can't be a coincidence, not with everything else that's happening." They exchanged a determined look, silently agreeing on their next move. Carefully, they began to edge closer to the gift drive, using the festive decorations as cover. The suspicious elves, too focused on their task, failed to notice the approaching pair. As Holly and Jack drew nearer, they could make out snippets of the elves' hushed conversation. "Hurry up! We need to get these distributed before anyone notices," one elf hissed, his pointy ears twitching nervously. "Are you sure this will work?" another asked, glancing around warily. "What if the magic doesn't take hold?" "It has to," the first elf replied grimly. "It's our only chance to dash." He cut off abruptly as a loud crash echoed through the square. Holly and Jack froze, realizing they had accidentally knocked over a stack of candy canes in their attempt to get closer. Chapter 6, Charity's Shadow. Holly and Jack slipped into the town hall, the murmur of voices guiding them to the gift drive. They wove through the crowded room, eyes scanning the tables laden with brightly wrapped presents. The scent of pine and peppermint filled the air, a comforting reminder of Mary Hollow's enchanting atmosphere. Holly's gaze snagged on a few boxes, their bows askew and paper torn. With a deepening frown, she nudged Jack, pointing. The sight of the shoddily wrapped gifts was unsettling, a stark contrast to the meticulous attention to detail that Mary Hollow residents usually displayed. "That's not how Mary Hollow wraps gifts," she whispered, concern creasing her brow. Holly's fingers traced the rough edges of the package, feeling the telltale signs of hasty wrapping and careless handling. The paper was torn in places, and the tape was poorly placed, as if someone had hurriedly tried to conceal their clumsy work. The normally pristine presentation of the town's gifts had been marred, hinting at something amiss. Jack leaned in, examining a box with a critical eye. His icy breath frosted the surface as he inspected it closely, his brow furrowing in concentration. "Indeed," he murmured, "these appear to have been tampered with. The seal is broken, and the ribbon's been retied in a sloppy knot." The imperfections were glaring, a jarring departure from the usual care and precision that characterized Mary Hollow's festive preparations. Holly gasped, pulling out a melted candy cane from a nearby stocking, its once crisp stripes now a messy blur of red and white. The sticky residue clung to her fingers, a testament to the treat's ruined state. "This is sabotage," she declared, her voice trembling with anger and disbelief. She held up the candy cane, showing it to Jack, her eyes wide with outrage. The deliberate destruction of the holiday sweets felt like a personal attack on the town's cherished traditions. A voice chimed in, smooth and self-assured, cutting through the tension like a knife through butter. "What a mess, isn't it?" Noelle Kringle appeared beside them, her eyes gleaming with interest as she surveyed the chaotic scene. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against her arm as she spoke, her posture exuding an air of calculated elegance. "Finding anything unusual?" Holly exchanged a tense glance with Jack, their silent communication speaking volumes. She could feel her heart racing beneath her festive sweater, but she schooled her features into a casual smile. "Just some poorly wrapped gifts," she said, feigning nonchalance while her mind raced with suspicions. The presence of Noelle, with her enigmatic demeanor and hidden agenda, only heightened Holly's unease. Noelle's gaze sharpened, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. The corners of her mouth twitched, betraying a hint of suspicion. "Is that all? You two seem quite focused." She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Almost as if you're on a mission." Her words hung in the air, a veiled challenge that seemed to probe the depths of their intentions. Jack straightened, his voice cool and distant as the winter wind. "We're just here to help, Noelle. Nothing more." His fingers curled at his sides, ready to summon his ice magic if needed. The air around him seemed to chill slightly, a subtle warning to Noelle not to pry further. The tension between them was palpable, a silent battle of wills playing out in the crowded room. Noelle's smile didn't reach her eyes as she responded, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "Of course. Well, don't let me keep you." She moved away, her gaze lingering on them, as if trying to decipher their true intentions. The click of her heels echoed in the tense silence, each step seeming to punctuate her unspoken doubts. Her departure left a palpable sense of relief mixed with heightened vigilance. Holly turned to Jack, her brow furrowed, worry lines etching themselves deeper. "She's up to something," she muttered, her suspicion growing with each passing moment. She could feel it in her gut, an instinctual warning that Noelle was more involved in this than she let on. The air of mystery surrounding the young Kringle only added to the complexity of their investigation. He nodded, his eyes following Noelle's retreating figure. "Let's keep moving," he whispered, placing a comforting hand on Holly's shoulder. They needed to stay focused, to uncover more clues before Noelle could interfere further. The stakes were high, and every moment counted in their race against time. They continued their search, the air thick with tension. The once cheerful chatter of the room now seemed muffled and distant, as if the very atmosphere was holding its breath in anticipation. Holly paused at a beautifully wrapped box, its gold ribbon shimmering like stars against the dark night sky. She reached out, her fingers tingling as she touched it, a surge of magic pulsing through her veins. "Jack," she whispered, her voice filled with awe, "this one's different." He joined her, his hand hovering over the box. A soft glow emanated from within, casting an ethereal light upon their faces, highlighting the worry in their eyes. "Careful," he murmured, his voice barely audible above the murmurs of the crowd. "We don't know what kind of magic we're dealing with." The uncertainty added a layer of caution to their actions, a reminder of the unpredictable nature of the enchantments at play. Holly untied the ribbon with trembling fingers, lifting the lid. The box was empty, save for a soft light pulsating at its center. The charity fragment. As she reached for it, the room trembled, the floor seeming to shift beneath their feet like the deck of a ship in a storm. Around them, gifts began to shake, bows unraveling, wrapping paper tearing with a sound like distant thunder. The sense of chaos was overwhelming, a stark contrast to the usual harmony of Merry Hollow's festivities. Noelle appeared at their side, her eyes wide with surprise, her usual composure cracking. "What's happening?" she demanded, her voice laced with fear and a hint of something else, recognition. Her gaze darted between Holly and Jack, her hands clenching and unclenching at her sides. The sudden vulnerability in her demeanor was a stark contrast to her usual poised facade. Holly grabbed the fragment, the light intensifying in her palm, warmth spreading up her arm. A gust of wind swept through the room, scattering wrappings and knocking over displays. The chandelier flickered, its lights dancing wildly like 1,000 fireflies, casting eerie shadows across the panicked faces of the townsfolk. The chaos seemed to escalate, a palpable sense of unease spreading through the crowd like a contagion. Noelle stepped back, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. Her usual confidence seemed to evaporate like snow in summer. I should go," she stammered, quickly excusing herself, nearly tripping over her own feet in her haste to leave. Her abrupt departure left a lingering sense of suspicion, a question mark hanging in the air. Holly watched her leave, suspicion etched on her face. She turned to Jack, the fragment pulsing in her hand like a tiny, magical heartbeat. "We need to figure out what's going on," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil around them. "This is bigger than we thought." The realization of the gravity of their situation settled over them like a heavy cloak, a reminder of the stakes involved. Jack nodded, his expression grave, frost forming at his fingertips. "But first, let's get out of here. We're drawing too much attention." The need for discretion was paramount, a strategic retreat to regroup and plan their next move. As they moved to leave, weaving through the panicked crowd, a small, glowing orb floated towards Holly, its delicate light bobbing gently like a firefly in the night. She recognized the distinctive mark of Professor Bobble's seal upon its surface, an intricate snowflake design that seemed to shift and change. Her heart pounded as she plucked the orb from the air, revealing the urgent message within. The anticipation of the information it contained added another layer of tension to their already fraught journey. "Holly, Jack," she read aloud, her voice barely above a whisper, her breath catching in her throat. "I've found something crucial regarding the celestial star's history. You must come at once. The fate of Mary Hollow may depend on it." The orb flickered and vanished, leaving behind a sense of urgency that hung heavy in the air. They needed to act fast, before whatever dark force was at work could claim another victim. Their eyes met, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Without a word, they hurried out, leaving the chaos behind, drawn towards the new lead that promised answers to their ever-growing questions. Chapter 7, Bells of Faith. Holly and Jack dashed through Mary Hollow's twisting streets, their breath creating frosty puffs in the chilly night, the sound of their rushing footsteps shattering the late-hour quiet. The church rose before them, its bell tower reaching for the star-filled sky, throwing a lengthy, daunting shadow over the cozy homes beneath. As they neared, the stone gargoyles lining the tower's edge roused, their eyes gleaming an unsettling red, seemingly detecting the urgency that drove Holly and Jack onward. "Watch out!" Jack shouted as one of the creatures swooped down, its stone wings creaking ominously, the sound grating against the otherwise peaceful night like nails on a chalkboard. Its eyes burned brighter, casting an eerie red glow over their faces, painting their features with a sinister hue. Holly ducked just in time, feeling the displaced air rustle her curly red hair as the razor-sharp claws grazed the space she had occupied mere moments before. "We don't have time for this," she growled, her sugar magic swirling around her fingers like ribbons of shimmering frosting, ready to be unleashed. The magic crackled and sparked, reflecting the urgency that surged within her. They fought their way up the tower, their breaths coming in short, misty puffs that clouded the air around them. Dodging and weaving past the animated gargoyles that seemed determined to impede their progress, Jack's frost magic kept the creatures at bay. Ice crystals formed on their stone surfaces, slowing their movements and giving Holly and Jack precious seconds to press onward. Meanwhile, Holly's sugar concoctions stuck them in place, their gooey sweetness hardening into an unyielding bind that temporarily immobilized the creatures. Each step was a battle, each breath a victory as they inched closer to their goal. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of skirmishes and near misses, they reached the top, panting and disheveled, their clothes dusted with remnants of sugar and ice from their magical battles. The chill of the night bit into their skin, but the heat of their exertion kept them warm. Professor Bobble paced the small room, muttering to himself in a frenzy, his usually methodical demeanor replaced by a frantic energy that was almost palpable. His white hair, normally neatly combed, stuck up in all directions, a testament to the countless times he had run his hands through it in distress. He barely noticed their arrival, continuing to scribble furiously on a chalkboard covered in arcane symbols that seemed to dance under the flickering light of the room's solitary lantern. The chalk scraped against the board, filling the room with a harsh, staccato sound that echoed off the cold stone walls. "Professor?" Holly called out, her voice laced with concern as she stepped further into the room, her boots echoing softly on the cold stone floor. The sound reverberated through the chamber, cutting through the professor's frenzied mutterings. "What's going on?" Bobble whirled around, his eyes wild with a mix of fear and exhilaration. "The star! It's more powerful than we ever imagined." He grabbed Holly's shoulders, his grip surprisingly strong, his fingers digging into her flesh with urgency. His eyes bore into hers, the intensity of his gaze almost overwhelming. "We must reassemble it before it's too late." Jack gently pried the professor's hands away, his voice calm yet firm as he tried to ground the distraught man. "Calm down, sir. Tell us what you've discovered." His ice blue eyes held a steady, reassuring gaze, a beacon of calm in the storm of Bobble's panic. Bobble took a deep breath, visibly trying to collect himself before continuing. His chest heaved as he struggled to regain his composure, his hands shaking slightly as he gestured towards the chalkboard. "The celestial star isn't just a magical ornament. It's the linchpin of Mary Hollow's existence. Without it whole, the town's magic will unravel, and will be exposed to the outside world." His voice trembled with the gravity of his revelation, the words hanging heavy in the air like a thick, oppressive fog. Holly gasped, the weight of their mission suddenly feeling much heavier, the responsibility pressing down on her like a physical force that threatened to crush her spirit. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing the urgency of their quest. "But why didn't anyone know this before?" she asked, her mind racing with the implications, her green eyes searching Bobble's face for answers. The question hung in the air, a desperate plea for understanding amidst the chaos. "It was hidden knowledge, passed down only to a select few," Bobble explained, his gaze flicking back to the chalkboard filled with ancient symbols that seemed to hold the secrets of their town's existence. His voice was tinged with a mix of awe and fear, the weight of the secret he carried etched into every line on his face. "I've spent years researching, trying to uncover the truth buried beneath layers of secrecy and time." A low, resonant hum filled the air, drawing their attention to the massive church bell suspended above them. Holly's eyes widened as she spotted a faint glow emanating from within the bell, pulsating in rhythm with the hum. The light seemed to pulse with a life of its own, a heartbeat of pure magic that called out to her. "The faith fragment," she exclaimed, her heart pounding in her chest like a drumbeat, echoing the urgency of their quest. Her voice was a mixture of excitement and trepidation, the realization of what they were about to face settling over her like a heavy cloak. As they moved towards the bell, it began to swing on its own, the hum growing louder, building to a deafening crescendo that seemed to vibrate through their very bones. The sound was all-encompassing, a symphony of raw power that resonated deep within them. Holly reached out, her fingers brushing the fragment just as the bell struck midnight, the resonant toll echoing through the tower and out into the night, shattering the silence with its powerful call. The sound was a clarion call, a herald of change that rippled through the air like a shockwave. A wave of pure magic burst forth, washing over them and spreading out across Mary Hollow like a tidal surge. The force of it nearly knocked them off their feet, leaving them gasping for breath as the raw power of the fragment coursed through their veins, filling them with a sense of awe and wonder. The magic was a living thing, a force that surged through them, connecting them to the very heart of Mary Hollow. It was a reminder of the power that bound them all, the shared spirit that kept their town hidden and safe. Recovering, Jack helped Holly up, the faith fragment clutched tightly in her hand, its glow casting dancing shadows on the stone walls around them. The light was a beacon, a symbol of hope in the face of the daunting task ahead. "We need to hurry," he said, his voice urgent, his ice blue eyes reflecting the fragment's luminescence like twin moons. "Christmas Eve is approaching fast, and we're running out of time." His words were a call to action, a reminder of the urgency that drove them forward, the countdown that ticked away with every passing moment. They rushed to the tower's edge, looking out over the town that had become their shared responsibility. What they saw made their hearts sink. The once vibrant magical aura that surrounded Mary Hollow was visibly dimming, like a candle slowly burning out, its flame flickering and weak. The glow that had always bathed the town in a warm, inviting light now cast long, ominous shadows, stretching across the cobblestone streets and rooftops like dark fingers. The normally cheerful sounds of caroling and laughter seemed muted, as if the very air was heavy with anticipation of the encroaching darkness. The sight underscored the urgency of their mission, galvanizing them into action. They exchanged a determined glance, their resolve strengthened as they prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that the fate of Mary Hollow rested on their shoulders. Holly turned to Jack, determination etched on her face. "We're running out of time." Chapter 8, Wisdom's Price. The town library loomed before them, its grand entrance flanked by towering nutcracker statues, their usually jovial faces now etched with an unsettling grimness, as if reflecting the turmoil within. Holly and Jack exchanged a determined glance, steeling themselves for the challenge ahead. Pushing open the heavy oak doors, they revealed a scene of utter chaos. Books flew through the air like errant birds, their pages fluttering wildly as if trying to escape their bindings. Shelves floated haphazardly, creating a disorienting maze that shifted with each blink, defying any sense of order. Holly gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief, clutching her pointed witch hat to keep it from being swept away by the whirlwind of pages. "This is worse than the kitchen catastrophe," she exclaimed, her voice barely audible over the rustling of pages and the creaking of wooden shelves clattering against one another. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and ink, each book a whirling dervish of literary chaos, their spines cracking and pages flapping like wings in flight. Jack nodded, his jaw set firmly as he surveyed the chaos, his shimmering blue coat reflecting the erratic dance of flying books. "We need to find the wisdom fragment quickly," he said, his voice steady despite the pandemonium around them. He dodged a wayward encyclopedia, its pages fanning out like a peacock's tail, and sidestepped a swooping atlas, his ice-blue eyes scanning the tumultuous scene with strategic precision. A globe spun past him, its continents blurring into a whirl of geography and history, tracing an erratic orbit around their heads. They ventured deeper into the library, ducking and weaving through the aerial assault of literature. Holly reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing the spine of a particularly old tome that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. Its leather binding, worn smooth by time, was embossed with symbols that seemed to pulse with a silent rhythm, beckoning her like a siren's call. It shivered under her touch, a soft hum resonating from its pages, as if acknowledging her presence. She pulled it free from its floating shelf, the book's weight settling heavily in her hands, grounding her amidst the chaos. The scent of aged parchment and dust filled her nostrils, carrying with it a sense of ancient magic and untold stories, a whisper of secrets waiting to be revealed. "Holly?" Jack questioned, concern etching lines around his eyes as he noticed her intense focus on the book. He stepped closer, ready to offer support, his gaze never leaving her face. Around them, books continued to swoop and dive like a flock of birds caught in a storm, their pages casting shifting shadows on the worn wooden floor. "It's calling to me," she murmured, her gaze fixed on the ancient text. She opened it, her fingers tracing the intricate illustrations that seemed to dance on the pages. Constellations and symbols mirrored those on the celestial star, each one a piece of a puzzle that felt eerily familiar, stirring a deep resonance within her. A sudden surge of power coursed through her, the book's magic resonating with something deep within her core, awakening a sense of connection she had never felt before. Her eyes widened as she read, her breath catching in her throat. "Jack, this book, it mentions the celestial star. And it says I'm connected to it. It speaks of a lineage, a responsibility, a legacy passed down through generations." Her voice trailed off, the weight of the revelation settling over her like a cloak, both comforting and burdensome, a mantle of destiny that she could not ignore. Jack looked at her, a mix of pride and worry warring in his eyes. He wanted to tell her how he felt, to propose right then and there, but the timing seemed off amidst the danger and uncertainty. Swallowing his feelings, he focused on their immediate surroundings, his instincts honed by years of navigating treacherous ice realms. "We should keep moving," he urged gently, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. His touch was cool, a comforting contrast to the warm, pulsating magic that thrummed through her veins. As if on cue, a groaning sound echoed through the library, cutting through the constant rustling of pages. Above them, a massive bookshelf teetered precariously, threatening to topple over. Holly looked up, her heart pounding in her chest as she realized the imminent danger. The shelf began to fall, books raining down like a literary avalanche, threatening to bury them beneath a mountain of knowledge. A heavy atlas spiraled downwards, its gold-leafed pages fanning out like a bird of prey, its descent marked by the whistling of wind through its pages. Panic surged through her, but with it came a rush of power, unlike anything she had felt before. Her hands moved instinctively, sugar-infused magic pouring forth like a river of sparkling sweetness. The air filled with the scent of gingerbread and peppermint, the magic taking physical form as it flowed from her fingertips. The falling bookshelf halted mid-air, encased in a shimmering cocoon of hardened candy, its surface glistening like a frozen waterfall, refracting the chaotic scene into prisms of light. The books stopped their chaotic dance, suspended in a web of sparkling sugar strands, their pages gently fluttering as if sighing in relief, finally freed from their frenzied flight. A sense of calm washed over the library, the magical silence broken only by the soft tinkling of settling sugar crystals, a melody of sweet serenity amidst the former storm. Jack stared at her, awe and admiration shining in his eyes. "Holly, your powers," he began, his voice filled with wonder. He reached out, touching the candied bookshelf, its surface cool and smooth beneath his fingers, a testament to the incredible magic that had flowed from her. The library, once a chaotic storm of literature, now stood still, as if holding its breath in reverence to Holly's newfound strength. The air hummed with a gentle energy, the books floating softly, their pages rustling gently as if whispering secrets of ancient magic and forgotten lore. She met his gaze, a newfound confidence burning within her like a steady flame. "I think I'm finally understanding them," she said, a sense of determination settling over her. Her green eyes reflected the magical glow of the library, her curly red hair framing her face like a halo of fire, a beacon of strength and resolve. The air around her seemed to hum with an energy that was both familiar and new, a testament to her growing mastery of her magical abilities, a power that was uniquely hers, yet intertwined with the very essence of Mary Hollow and its enchanted history. Just then, a familiar figure dashed into the library, his marshmallow white hair disheveled and his usually pristine apron smudged with what looked like chocolate stains. "Holly!" "Jack! Thank goodness I found you!" Marshmallow exclaimed, his voice breathless from exertion and relief. His eyes darted around the library, taking in the chaos and the sudden stillness with equal measures of bewilderment and awe. The sight of the candied bookshelf and the suspended tomes seemed to momentarily stun him, his mouth agape in disbelief. They rushed towards him, the library's chaos momentarily forgotten as concern for their friend took over. "Marsh, what's wrong?" Holly asked, her heart still pounding from their narrow escape, her mind already racing with the possibility of new dangers lurking in the magical town of Mary Hollow. Jack stood beside her, his hand resting protectively on the small of her back, his gaze scanning the room for any further threats. The library, now a tableau of frozen literary chaos, stood as a silent witness to their growing bond and the mysteries yet to be unraveled. Marsh looked at them, his eyes filled with urgency. "It's the town square. Something's happening to the Christmas tree." Chapter 9, The Candy Maze of Kindness. Holly and Jack traded a look, the urgency in Marsh's tone driving them onward. They hurried out of the library, the sugary bookshelf gleaming like a frozen memorial behind them. The streets of Mary Hollow hummed with an unusual energy, the typical cheer supplanted by a subtle tension. They trailed Marsh to his new confectionery, a fantastical world of enchanted sweets that appeared to sparkle and sway in the window display. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of sugar and spice, a symphony of sweet aromas that made Holly's heart flutter with delight and nostalgia. The walls were lined with shelves of gleaming jars, each filled with candies that pulsed with magic, casting kaleidoscopic reflections on the polished floor. The atmosphere buzzed with a magical energy that seemed to dance on the tip of Holly's tongue, invigorating her senses and sparking a sense of wonder within her. Marsh led them through a beaded curtain made of strings of candy canes that clinked together like wind chimes, their peppermint scent filling the air and adding a refreshing note to the already enchanting atmosphere. "Welcome to the maze," Marsh said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber that stretched out before them. The floor was a labyrinth of candy paths, the walls made of towering stacks of sweets that shimmered under the enchanted lights. The sight was a feast for the eyes, a whimsical landscape of confections that seemed to defy gravity. Gumdrops glistened like dewdrops, while licorice ropes twisted and turned like vines in an enchanted forest. As they watched, the paths shifted, the walls of candy bars and lollipops sliding and rearranging like a giant, colorful puzzle, as if moved by an invisible hand. The maze seemed to breathe with a life of its own, responding to an unseen force that governed its movements, each change more mesmerizing than the last. "The maze is tied to the town's magical ley lines," Marsh explained, his eyes scanning the ever-changing paths with a mix of awe and concern. "It responds to the spirit of Merry Hollow, and right now, it's as chaotic as the town itself. The stronger the emotions, the more unpredictable the maze becomes. It's a reflection of our collective state of mind, a mirror of our hopes, fears, and dreams. When the town is at peace, the maze is a harmonious dance of sweet treats. But when turmoil stirs, so does the labyrinth." Holly stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she studied the maze, her fingers sparking with a hint of her baking magic. The air crackled softly around her, responding to her innate power, as if the very essence of the maze recognized her presence. "We need to find the kindness fragment. Any ideas where to start?" she asked, her voice steady despite the daunting task ahead, her resolve unwavering. Marsh nodded, his expression serious yet hopeful. "The maze will test you. It'll challenge your kindness, your teamwork, your resolve. Only by working together and embodying the spirit of Merry Hollow can you find what you seek. Remember, the maze isn't just a puzzle, it's a mirror of our hearts and minds, a test of our character and unity. It will push you to your limits, but if you stay true to yourselves and each other, it will guide you to your goal." Jack squared his shoulders, determination etched on his face as he summoned a cool breeze of his ice magic, ready for whatever lay ahead. The air around him shimmered with frost, a tangible manifestation of his resolve, his eyes reflecting the enchanted lights of the maze. "Let's do this," he said, his voice firm and resolute, his gaze meeting Holly's in a silent pact of support and partnership. They ventured into the maze, the paths shifting beneath their feet, each step a dance with the unpredictable magic. At each turn, they faced challenges that tested their patience, kindness, and unity. A wall of chocolate bars blocked their path, melting under a heat lamp, threatening to turn into a gooey, impassable mess. Holly quickly conjured a blast of cool air, freezing the chocolate into a stable bridge, her magic shimmering like frost, her hands moving with practiced ease. Jack offered his hand, helping her across the slippery surface, their bond strengthening with each shared challenge. Their eyes met briefly, a silent acknowledgement of their growing trust and partnership, a moment of connection amidst the chaos. In another section, they encountered a group of crying gumdrops, their tiny, gelatinous faces contorted in sorrow, their colors muted and dull. Jack knelt down, his voice gentle as he comforted them, promising to find a way to restore the town's magic and bring back their vibrant hues. The gumdrops cheered up, rolling aside to reveal a hidden path, their tiny voices singing in gratitude, their colors beginning to brighten with renewed hope. The air seemed to lighten around them, the magic of the maze responding to their acts of kindness, as if the very heart of the labyrinth was acknowledging their good deeds. Finally, they turned a corner and found a heart-shaped lollipop glowing with a soft, warm light, pulsating with an inviting magic. Holly reached out, her fingers wrapping around the candy, its surface smooth and cool to the touch. As she pulled it from the wall, the maze shuddered gently, the path settling into a stable pattern, as if the heart of the labyrinth had found its rhythm, its chaos soothed by their presence. The kindness fragment pulsed within the lollipop, its magic resonating with Holly's touch, harmonizing with her own powers. She could feel its energy coursing through her, a gentle warmth that filled her with a renewed sense of purpose, a beacon of hope amidst the uncertainty. The air around them seemed to hum with a newfound harmony, the magic of the maze responding to the union of Holly's empathy and the lollipop's enchantment, creating a sense of calm and resolve that bolstered their spirits for the challenges ahead. As they turned to leave, Holly paused, her gaze sweeping over the now tranquil maze. The air was filled with a sense of calm, yet something felt off, a sense of unease prickling at the back of her mind like a forgotten melody, a discordant note amidst the symphony of sweet aromas that permeated the shop. She looked at Marsh, her eyes narrowing as her intuition stirred, her senses heightened by the magic that surrounded them. The sweet shop seemed to hold more secrets than it let on, and she was determined to uncover them, to delve beneath the sugary surface and find the truth hidden within. Marsh, is there something more to this shop? Something hidden beneath the sweet surface, a secret that the maze is trying to reveal, she asked, her voice laced with a mix of curiosity and concern. Her mind was already racing with possibilities, her empathy resonating with the undercurrent of mystery that seemed to linger in the air. I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this place than meets the eye, and I'm not leaving until I understand what that is. Before Marsh could respond, a gust of icy wind blew through the shop, the beaded curtain rattling like bones. The temperature plummeted, frost creeping across the candy displays. Outside, a magical blizzard swept through the streets, the snow swirling in intricate patterns, led by a figure cloaked in ice and frost. Evergreen Frost had arrived, his eyes burning with a cold intensity as he surveyed the chaotic town. His eyes finally rested on the candy store, where his brother stood prepared to confront whatever tempest might arrive. Chapter 10, Blizzard of Generosity. The magical blizzard swirled around Holly, Jack, and Evergreen, the snow thick and disorienting, the wind howling like a chorus of tormented spirits. Holly squinted, her eyes stinging from the cold, as she scanned the storm for any sign of the generosity fragment. The snowflakes seemed to dance in intricate patterns, teasing her with glimpses of a warm, glowing light before scattering into chaos once more. The air was alive with magic, prickling her skin with a mix of excitement and dread. Jack stepped forward, his ice magic clashing with Evergreen's, the air crackling with tension as frost crept along the ground beneath them. His silvery hair whipped around his face like tendrils of ice, and he raised his voice above the storm, each word sharp and clear. "What are you doing here, Evergreen?" Jack demanded, his voice as cold and unyielding as the blizzard around them. "This isn't your fight. You left, remember? You abandoned Mary Hollow and everyone in it." Evergreen's eyes flashed with a mix of anger and hurt, his stance defensive but determined. He leaned into the wind, his voice carrying over the howling gusts, strong and resolute. "I had my reasons, Jack. I have as much right to be here as you do, brother. I've been watching, waiting, all this time. I know about the fragments, about the celestial star. I want to help. I need to make things right." His expression was a mix of defiance and vulnerability, a silent plea for acceptance and understanding. The air between them crackled with more than just magic, it hummed with the tension of unspoken words and shared history, a tangible reminder of the bond they once shared and the chasm that had grown between them. Holly intervened, her voice steady and calm despite the chaotic storm surrounding them. She placed a hand firmly on her pointed witch hat to keep it from flying off, her green eyes filled with resolve and empathy. "We can't do this alone," she asserted, looking from one brother to the other. "Mary Hollow needs all the help it can get. But we need to trust each other. We need to put aside our differences and work together. Our strengths lie in our unity, not our divisions." She looked at Evergreen, her gaze softening with compassion. "We need to heal, together, as a family would. The town needs us all, and we need each other. The magic of Mary Hollow is rooted in our bonds, in the love and support we share. Without that, we're just individuals fighting a losing battle." Evergreen's expression faltered, a mix of pain and longing flickering across his face as Holly's words struck a chord deep within him. He turned to Jack, his voice barely audible over the howling wind, a raw honesty etched into every word. I never wanted to leave, Jack. I never wanted any of this. I thought I was doing what was best for everyone. I thought I was protecting you, protecting the town. But I was wrong. I see that now. His eyes, filled with regret and sorrow, pleaded for his brother's understanding. The wind seemed to echo his sorrow, its howl mournful and long, as if the very elements were urging them to reconcile. Jack's stance softened, his eyes reflecting a shared pain. The wind seemed to calm slightly, as if responding to their emotions, the snowflakes falling more gently, like a whispered apology. I know, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I know you did what you thought was right. We can't change the past, but we can shape the future. Together. The ice in his voice melted away, leaving only a warm sincerity, a promise of renewed brotherhood and shared purpose. Holly reached out, her hand resting gently on Evergreen's arm. Her festive sweater was dusted with snow, but her touch was warm and reassuring, a beacon of hope in the storm. We need you, Evergreen. We need your help to find the fragment and save Mary Hollow. We need your unique magic, your insights. We're stronger with you than without you. You're a part of this town, a part of us. Your magic is as intertwined with Mary Hollow's spirit as Jack's and mine. Together, we form a triad of strength, a force to be reckoned with. Evergreen nodded, his resolve strengthening. He looked around at the storm, his eyes narrowing as he focused on their task. The fragment is at the heart of the storm. We need to work together, combine our magic to reach it. Alone, we might falter, but united, we can overcome any obstacle. Together, we can restore balance, bring peace back to Mary Hollow. Our combined magic is more than just a sum of its parts, it's a harmonious blend of our strengths, a testament to our unity and our love for this town. They joined hands, their magic intertwining in a dance of ice and warmth, of past and present. Holly's magic pulsed with a comforting warmth, like the hearth of a cozy home on a cold winter's night, inviting and steady. It was the magic of hearth and home, of comforting embraces and shared laughter, of the town's eternal Christmas spirit, a reminder of the joy and love that bound them all. Jack's ice magic shimmered, its cold intensity tempered by his growing connection to Mary Hollow, the sharp edges softening with a newfound gentleness. It was the magic of winter's beauty, of snowflakes and ice sculptures, of the calm that follows a storm, a reflection of the town's serene moments and the peace they were fighting to preserve. Evergreen's magic was a blend of both, a bridge between the familiar and the unknown, a harmonious melding of the comfort of Holly's magic and the invigorating chill of Jack's. It was the magic of change, of transitions, of the turning of seasons, embodying the town's hidden depths and its potential for growth, a symbol of the future they were determined to shape together. The storm around them responded to their united front, the chaos of the blizzard beginning to subside as if nature itself acknowledged their newfound harmony. Snowflakes aligned in intricate patterns, each one unique yet part of a greater whole, mirroring the unity of the trio. The wind whispered ancient secrets as it guided them towards the heart of the storm, where a spectacle awaited. Suspended in the air, untouched by the turmoil, was the generosity fragment. It pulsated with a warm, golden light that seemed to beckon them closer, promising hope, solace, and the fortitude to face whatever lay ahead. As they reached for it, the fragment's magic surged, filling them with a profound sense of unity, of shared purpose and unspoken understanding. The blizzard dissipated, the snow settling gently on the ground like a soft, white blanket. The wind died down to a mere whisper, leaving behind a profound sense of peace and an unyielding determination that burned within each of them. Evergreen turned to them, his eyes filled with a newfound determination. I know where we need to go next, he said, his voice steady. The Historical Society. There's something you need to see, something that will explain everything. It's time to uncover the truth about Mary Hollow's past, to shed light on the darkness that has lingered for too long. Chapter 11, Echoes of Tradition. Holly, Jack, and Evergreen rushed along the snow-kissed avenues of Merry Hollow, their boots crushing the newly fallen flakes. The Merry Hollow Historical Society towered ahead, its charming facade concealing the mysteries hidden inside. Evergreen led them inside, the musty scent of old books and preserved artifacts filling their nostrils, intermingled with the faint aroma of peppermint and pine. The creaky wooden floorboards groaned under their feet, each step echoing the weight of history that permeated the Merry Hollow Historical Society. Display cases lined the walls, each one a window into Merry Hollow's storied past, illuminated by the soft glow of antique lanterns that cast dancing shadows on the worn floor. Jack ran his fingers along the cool glass of the displays, his gaze lingering on a faded photograph of a group of carolers from decades past, their smiles frozen in time, their song sheets yellowed with age. A sense of reverence filled the air, as if the very building whispered tales of a bygone era, its aged timbers creaking and sighing like an old storyteller settling into a familiar narrative. "Over here," Evergreen called, his voice hushed yet urgent, beckoning them towards a large mural depicting the town's founding. The painting sprawled across the wall, a tapestry of colors that told the story of Merry Hollow's beginnings, from the first snowfall to the raising of the enchanted Christmas tree. Holly squinted at the intricate details, her eyes drawn to a series of strange symbols etched into the bottom corner, almost hidden within the swirls of paint. The symbols seemed to shimmer slightly, as if imbued with their own subtle magic, inviting closer inspection. Each one appeared to pulse with a faint glow, hinting at secrets buried deep within the town's history. Evergreen noticed her interest and stepped closer, his breath misting slightly in the cool air of the old building. "Those are part of the first puzzle," he explained, his voice barely above a whisper, as if the very walls might be listening, their ancient wood panels echoing with the ghosts of conversations past. "Each one represents a different element of Merry Hollow's history. We need to solve them to uncover the truth about the enchanted ornament exchange and the secrets our founders hid." They set to work, their minds racing as they deciphered each symbol's meaning, the air filled with the soft scratching of pencil on paper and the occasional murmur of discovery. With each puzzle solved, a new piece of the mural slid aside with a satisfying click, revealing a hidden compartment behind it. Inside rested ancient artifacts, each one imbued with holiday magic that hummed softly in the air, their enchantments resonating like a faint, harmonious choir. There was a wreath that never wilted, its leaves eternally green and glossy, seeming to defy the passage of time, a nutcracker that danced on its own, its movements eerily lifelike, its painted eyes seeming to follow their every move with an uncanny intelligence, a music box that played a never-ending carol, its melody filling the air with a haunting sweetness that seemed to resonate with their very souls, stirring memories of holidays past and the warmth of shared joy. A tiny gingerbread house stood nearby, its frosting details intricate and lifelike, emitting a scent of freshly baked cookies that filled the room with a comforting, familiar warmth. At the center of the collection, encased in a dusty glass dome, sat the original snow globe that had birthed Merry Hollow. Its crystalline flakes swirled gently, catching the light in a mesmerizing dance that cast tiny, glittering rainbows on the walls, as if the very essence of winter was captured within its delicate confines. And within its heart, a fragment of the celestial star pulsed with a warm, inviting glow, casting a soft luminescence on their faces, the light seeming to throb in time with their own heartbeats, drawing them in with its enchanting allure. "The tradition fragment," Holly breathed, her fingers tracing the outline of the snow globe in awe. The glass felt cool to her touch, a stark contrast to the warmth radiating from the fragment within. She could almost feel the power of the artifact, the weight of its history and the magic it held, as if it were alive and resonating with her very being, its energy pulsing through her like the rhythm of an ancient song. Beside her, the air grew colder, a sign of Jack's presence as he leaned in, his breath visible in the chill. Jack reached out, his touch causing the glass to dissipate into shimmering mist, as if the very barrier between them and the magic had been broken. As he grasped the fragment, a deep, resonant hum echoed through the room, vibrating through their very bones, the sound seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The artifacts around them began to stir, the wreath unfurling its verdant tendrils like a living entity, reaching out as if to ensnare them, the nutcracker springing to life with a menacing clack of its jaw, its painted eyes now gleaming with an unsettling intelligence, its movements swift and purposeful. And the music box's melody growing louder and more insistent, the sweet notes now tinged with a sense of urgency and danger, as if the very air was alive with a restless, uncontrolled magic. The tiny gingerbread house began to tremble, its frosting details shifting and changing, as if the very structure was trying to warn them of the magic's unpredictable nature. "We need to get out of here," Evergreen urged, his eyes wide with alarm. The once quiet museum now throbbed with an unsettling energy, the air thick with a sense of impending chaos. The very atmosphere seemed to crackle with magic, the hairs on their arms standing on end as the power in the room grew more palpable. It was as if the spirits of Mary Hollow's past were awakening, their presence filling the space with an unseen but tangible force that pressed against them from all sides. They raced towards the exit, the artifacts in hot pursuit. The wreath's tendrils snaked out to grab at their heels, while the Nutcracker's footsteps clattered menacingly behind them like the drums of an ancient battle, each step echoing ominously through the museum. Holly flung open the heavy wooden door, and they spilled out onto the street, slamming it shut behind them with a resounding thud that echoed through the crisp winter air. The sound reverberated like a warning bell through the once peaceful town, but the chaos had only just begun. Mary Hollow was in disarray, a kaleidoscope of wild, unchecked magic that seemed to warp the very fabric of the town. Strings of lights danced through the air like sentient serpents, their colors clashing and flickering in a dizzying display that cast eerie, shifting shadows on the snow-covered streets. It was as if the town itself was caught in a fever dream, its familiar charm twisted into something dark and unsettling. Snowmen marched in formation, their stick arms raised in eerie unison, their coal-button eyes glowing with an uncanny light, as if possessed by some unseen force. Their frozen forms were animated by a strange, unnatural life that made them move with a jerky, puppet-like motion. A massive gingerbread house loomed over the town square, its sugary scent cloying and overwhelming. Its walls dripped with icing that seemed to move and shift like something alive, the candy decorations twisting into grotesque shapes, as if the sweet treats were corrupted by the chaotic magic that now surged through the town. The town's once peaceful atmosphere was shattered, replaced by a palpable sense of unease and bewilderment. The air filled with the cries of confused residents and the distant, haunting melody of the music box, its song now a chilling soundtrack to the chaos that reigned. The sweet notes had turned discordant, echoing through the streets like a dark lullaby that sent shivers down their spines. Holly grasped the tradition shard tightly, its heat a sharp contrast to the turmoil surrounding them. The shard throbbed softly in her palm, as if answering the chaos with a steadying rhythm. She exchanged a resolute glance with Jack and Evergreen, her green eyes mirroring the disturbing luminosity of the gingerbread house. Their expressions were marked with determination, a silent agreement passing between them. Despite the chilling display and the town's plunge into disarray, they understood their task was far from complete. There was still much to accomplish, and Holly was resolved to finish it, regardless of the ominous powers that blocked their path. Chapter 12, Magical Meltdown. Holly and Jack dove headfirst into the whirlwind of enchanted chaos engulfing Mary Hollow. A herd of sentient snowmen, their coal eyes gleaming with mischief, rampaged down Candy Cane Lane, leaving a trail of toppled decorations and startled townsfolk in their wake. Some of the snowmen wore stolen scarves and hats, adding a touch of whimsy to their destructive path, while others brandished broken candy canes like tiny, festive swords. Holly raised her hands, her magic pulsing through the air like an electric current as she commanded the sugar in their bodies to solidify. The snowmen froze mid-stride, their round forms teetering for a moment before toppling over, now harmless and immobile, like fallen chess pieces scattered across a board. A few townsfolk cheered, while others sighed in relief, grateful for Holly's quick thinking. A small group of children, their cheeks rosy from the cold, began to reassemble the frozen snowmen, their laughter ringing out as they created a new winter scene, stacking the immobile forms into a makeshift fort. Meanwhile, Jack turned his attention to a trio of flying reindeer careening wildly through the sky, their panicked movements leaving trails of upturned snow from the rooftops they barely cleared. Their harnesses had snapped, leaving them directionless and frightened, a dangerous aerial ballet that threatened to disrupt the carefully maintained order of Mary Hollow. One reindeer narrowly missed colliding with the town's towering clock tower, its hooves brushing against the ancient stone, sending a cascade of ice chips tumbling down onto the cobblestone streets below. Another barely avoided crashing into the giant wreath adorning the town hall, its antlers tangling briefly in the evergreen boughs, scattering pine needles across the snow below. Townsfolk gasped, pointing at the spectacle unfolding above them, their breaths visible in the crisp air as they watched the reindeer's perilous dance. With a swift and practiced motion, Jack conjured a massive, shimmering net of ice, its intricate patterns catching the light like 1,000 tiny diamonds scattered across the sky. He launched it skyward, the net expanding and ensnaring the reindeer mid-flight, their frantic movements slowly subsiding as they felt the gentle, cooling touch of Jack's magic. Gently, he lowered them to the ground, their hooves touching down softly on the snow-covered street, a delicate dance of ice and gravity that left the reindeer unharmed and the townsfolk breathing a collective sigh of relief. Children cheered, their faces flushed with excitement, while adults murmured in admiration, the sight of Jack's magic a spectacle that momentarily eclipsed the chaos around them. Some even began to hum a soft, familiar carol, the melody a comforting backdrop to the scene unfolding before them, as Jack's mastery of ice magic brought a sense of calm and order to the streets. Across town, a blizzard of wrapping paper swirled through the air, threatening to engulf the market square. Shoppers ducked and covered their faces as the colorful tornado gained momentum, sending festive bows and ribbons flying in all directions like a whirlwind of misplaced cheer. Holly and Jack, drawn by the commotion, joined forces. With a nod of understanding, their magic intertwined seamlessly, creating a controlled vortex of wind and ice. The wrapping paper spun faster, forming a tight, colorful funnel before being deposited neatly into a nearby recycling bin, leaving the square clean and the townsfolk impressed. A few onlookers applauded, their hands muffled by mittens, while others whispered in amazement, struck by the powerful synergy between Holly's and Jack's magic. The air crackled with their combined power, a tangible force that sent a ripple of hope through the gathered crowd, a beacon of reassurance amidst the day's turmoil. Inspired by the display, some townsfolk began to use their own magic to help restore order, their combined efforts creating a sense of unity that had been lacking in the face of the day's chaos. Neighbors helped neighbors, their shared goal of restoring Merry Hollow's cheer binding them together, as laughter and camaraderie filled the air. Their efforts were momentarily halted by a run-in with the Kringle clan. Nicholas Kringle, his beard bristling with authority, barked orders at his kin, who were attempting to wrangle a group of enchanted nutcrackers. The nutcrackers, with minds of their own, were causing chaos, their wooden jaws snapping wildly at anything within reach, from strings of holiday lights to the hems of coats. One nutcracker had even managed to climb atop the statue of the town's founder, its wooden sword clashing against the stone in a futile duel, chips of ice flying with each strike. Holly, seeing their struggle, stepped in without hesitation. Her magic flowed into the nutcrackers, their wooden forms stiffening as she commanded the sugar within them to stabilize, bringing the errant figures under control and restoring order to the scene. A few of the Kringle clan members exchanged relieved glances, grateful for Holly's intervention despite their leader's stern demeanor. The nutcrackers, now docile, stood at attention, their wooden arms stiffly at their sides, a testament to Holly's growing command over her magic. Some of the younger Kringle clan members looked at Holly with newfound respect, their initial skepticism fading in the face of her abilities. A few even nodded in approval, acknowledging the skill and control she exhibited. "We need to work together," Holly insisted, her voice firm and her green eyes sparkling with resolve, like the steadfast glow of a Christmas candle. "Our combined efforts are the only way to restore balance to Merry Hollow." Nicholas scoffed, his beard quivering with disdain, his breath visible in the chilly air. "You're causing more chaos than you're preventing. Leave this to the professionals, Holly. You're meddling in things you don't understand." Jack stepped forward, his ice blue eyes flashing with determination as he stood shoulder to shoulder with Holly, a united front against Nicholas's reproach. "We're not leaving Merry Hollow to your mercy, Nicholas. We have a plan, and we're sticking to it. The town deserves better than your heavy-handed tactics." Tensions rose, the air crackling with unspent magic and simmering frustration, like a winter storm ready to break. The townsfolk watched, their breaths held in anticipation, as the standoff between Holly, Jack, and Nicholas reached a boiling point. Holly's connection to the celestial star pulsed stronger, a warm, insistent tug in her chest, as if the very heart of Mary Hollow was urging her forward, whispering ancient secrets into her mind. She turned to Jack, her eyes wide with realization, a newfound resolve shining through like a beacon. "Jack, I think I understand now. The star is guiding us, and we need to follow its lead. It's not just about solving a mystery, it's about listening to the magic that binds this town together, the essence that makes Mary Hollow what it is." Around them, the town seemed to hum with agreement, the very air resonating with the magic that held Mary Hollow together, a silent endorsement of Holly's words. The snowflakes falling around them seemed to dance in harmony, a gentle ballet of nature and enchantment, echoing the unity that Holly and Jack sought to bring to the town. "I can sense it," she murmured, her voice filled with wonder and conviction. The next fragment. "It's calling to me." Without another word to the Kringles, they dashed away, following the invisible thread of magic that guided Holly. The town blurred around them, a kaleidoscope of color and chaos, as they raced towards the edge of Mary Hollow. The pull of the star grew stronger, its warmth a beacon in the swirling madness, leading them ever onward. Their hearts pounded in sync, a rhythm that echoed the pulsating magic of the celestial star, drawing them closer to their destiny with each passing moment. Chapter 13, Fellowship in the Forests. Holly and Jack sprinted into the bewitched candy cane forest, the atmosphere heavy with the aroma of peppermint and pine. Towering candy canes striped in red and white stretched towards the sky, their hooks intertwining to form a dense canopy above. The underbrush crackled beneath their feet, a carpet of sparkling sugar crystals that crunched with each step. The forest hummed with an undercurrent of tension, the usual harmony disrupted by the discordant chatter of its magical inhabitants. They hadn't ventured far before stumbling upon a clearing where a heated argument was underway, the air thick with tension and the scent of peppermint. On one side, a group of elves, their pointed ears reddened with anger, stood with arms crossed, while a cluster of fairies on the other side had their wings ablaze with indignation, shedding sparkling embers like tiny, falling stars. A menagerie of talking animals, squirrels chattering nervously, rabbits thumping their hind feet anxiously, and birds fluttering their wings in agitation, lined the sidelines, their loyalties divided and their eyes darting between the two groups. The atmosphere buzzed with an electric charge, the usual harmony of the candy cane forest disrupted by the escalating dispute, which echoed through the trees and sent shivers down the spines of the magical creatures. The sugar crystal underbrush seemed to crackle louder, as if echoing the animosity in the air. "What's going on here?" Holly intervened, her voice firm yet gentle, cutting through the commotion like a warm knife through butter. She stepped forward, her green eyes scanning the crowd with a mix of concern and authority. Her presence commanded attention and respect, the creatures pausing their arguments to turn and face her with expectant eyes. The fairies' wings quieted, and the elves uncrossed their arms, all eager to hear what Holly had to say. An elf with a beard intricately braided with holly berries stepped forward, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. "The fairies are trying to hog all the sweet sap for themselves," he exclaimed, his voice trembling with frustration. "They think they're entitled to it just because they can fly and reach the treetops with ease." His words ignited a fresh wave of murmurs and disagreements, the creatures shifting uneasily as they awaited Holly's response. A fairy, her wings shimmering like frost under the moonlight, countered sharply, "And the elves think they own the forest because they're good with their hands and can tap the sap from the trunks. It's not fair. The sap should be shared equally among all creatures, regardless of our abilities." Her words sparked a new wave of murmurs and disagreements, the creatures shifting uneasily as they awaited Holly's response. The rabbits thumped their feet harder, and the squirrels chattered louder, adding to the growing din. A chorus of agreements and disagreements erupted, the cacophony echoing through the forest like a discordant symphony. The animals shifted uneasily, their whispers adding to the din as they exchanged worried glances. Holly raised her hands, her magic pulsing softly like a heartbeat, a visible reminder of her authority and her connection to the forest's essence. Enough! This isn't solving anything, she said, her voice steady and calm, yet filled with an undercurrent of power that silenced the crowd. We need to work together, not against each other. The forest's magic is at stake, and so is our home. Jack nodded solemnly, his gaze sweeping over the creatures with a keen understanding. His ice-blue eyes reflected the shimmering lights of the forest, holding a wisdom that transcended his outsider status. The forest's magic is unstable, he added, his voice resonating with a quiet strength that demanded attention. We're here to fix that, but we need your help. United, we can restore the balance and ensure that the candy cane forest remains a sanctuary for all magical beings. The animals murmured amongst themselves, a ripple of unease passing through their ranks as they considered the weight of Holly and Jack's words. A wise old owl perched on a branch hooted softly, his large eyes filled with ancient wisdom and a deep understanding of the forest's plight. The star's power is fading, he said, his voice carrying a sense of urgency that sent a shiver down the spines of the gathered creatures. We must unite to restore balance, or the forest will wither, and its magic will be lost to us forever. His words hung heavy in the air, underscoring the gravity of their mission. Holly and Jack exchanged a determined look, a silent agreement passing between them as they recognized the gravity of their mission. They quickly split the group into teams, each consisting of elves, fairies, and animals, ensuring that the unique strengths of each creature were represented and valued. The first challenge they faced was a race through a maze of candy canes, where cooperation was key to navigating the twisting paths and overcoming the obstacles that lay ahead. The fairies provided aerial reconnaissance, their wings leaving trails of stardust as they flew overhead, their keen eyes spotting the hidden paths and secret shortcuts that would lead their teams to victory. The elves used their crafting skills to create new pathways, their nimble fingers weaving intricate patterns through the candy canes as they forged a way forward for their allies. The animals lent their keen senses to avoid dead ends, their noses twitching and ears perked to detect the subtlest signs of danger or opportunity, their instincts guiding their teams with unerring accuracy. Next, they faced a puzzle involving a tangled web of lights, the strings twisted and knotted like a chaotic tapestry. The fairies' nimble fingers worked deftly, their touch as light as a feather as they carefully untangled the delicate strands. The elves applied their technical prowess, their eyes narrowing in concentration as they traced the paths of the wires, their minds working like finely tuned machines to solve the intricate riddle before them. The animals offered patient guidance, their calm demeanor helping to untangle the mess with careful precision, their steady paws and gentle beaks working in harmony with their magical counterparts. Slowly but surely, the forest began to light up with a warm, festive glow, the strings of lights adorning the candy canes like jewels, their twinkling brilliance illuminating the path forward for Holly, Jack, and their newfound allies. The creatures marveled at the transformation, their eyes wide with wonder as they witnessed the power of unity and cooperation firsthand. The sugar crystal underbrush seemed to sparkle brighter, reflecting the growing harmony in the air. Finally, they approached the heart of the forest, where a massive candy cane stood like a sentinel, its stripes flickering like a faulty neon sign, a stark reminder of the instability that threatened their magical haven. At its base, the Fellowship fragment pulsed weakly, its light barely visible against the darkening backdrop of the forest, a feeble beacon in the encroaching darkness. Holly reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool surface of the fragment, her touch igniting a burst of magic that exploded from it like a tidal wave. The discord melted away, replaced by a sense of unity and harmony that filled the air like a sweet melody, its soothing notes resonating through the hearts and minds of the gathered beings. The candy cane forest hummed with renewed energy, the stripes on the canes glowing steadily, casting a soft, comforting light over the landscape like a reassuring embrace. The elves, fairies, and animals looked at each other, their eyes wide with wonder and newfound respect, their hearts filled with a renewed sense of camaraderie and purpose. They turned to Holly and Jack, gratitude shining in their gazes, a silent thank you written in their expressions, their eyes reflecting the warm glow of the forest that surrounded them. The old owl hooted softly, his voice echoing through the now peaceful forest like a gentle breeze, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of the magical creatures who called it home. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with a profound sense of gratitude and relief. "You have brought us together when we needed it most." The forest is once again a place of harmony and cooperation, a sanctuary where all beings can live and thrive in peace. The creatures nodded in agreement, their voices joining in a chorus of appreciation, the sound filling the air like a symphony of hope and unity, a testament to the power of friendship and the indomitable spirit of the magical beings who inhabited the enchanted candy cane forest. The sugar crystal underbrush crackled softly, as if in agreement, echoing the renewed sense of peace and harmony. With new allies and valuable insights into the star's power, Holly and Jack made their way back to the town. As they emerged from the forest, they found a crowd gathered outside Holly's bakery, their faces etched with concern. The magical chaos had escalated in their absence, and the townsfolk were desperate for answers. Holly stepped forward, her resolve unshaken, ready to face whatever awaited them next. Chapter 14, Harmony's Discord. They threaded through the crowd, the villagers' nervous murmurs fading as they stepped into her pastry shop. The heat inside was stifling, the air dense with the aroma of ginger and something else, a wild, unrestrained magic that tingled their skin. The bakery had been altered, the counters were now frosted barriers of gingerbread, their surfaces gleaming and irregular, as if sculpted by a chaotic power. The displays had become candy-glazed windows, their panes shining like stained glass, projecting a play of colors onto the floor. Icicles of royal icing dangled from the ceiling, dripping onto the gumdrop-speckled floor, which glimmered like a tapestry of minute, vibrant gems, each one throbbing with its own life. Holly gasped, her hands flying to her mouth, eyes widening in disbelief. "What's happening?" The air was thick with more than just the scent of ginger, it crackled with a wild, untamed magic that made her skin prickle. A gingerbread man, twice the size of her usual creations, waddled past, its icing-drawn smile curving into a mischievous grin. Its button eyes glowed with an eerie intelligence, and it left a trail of crumbs and a faint smell of nutmeg, as if it were shedding parts of itself with each heavy step. The floor trembled, and a low hum resonated through the air, pulsing with a magical energy that seemed to sync with Holly's racing heart. The hum grew louder, the vibrations intensifying as if the very heartbeat of the bakery was quickening, responding to the surge of untamed power. Jack grabbed her hand, pulling her away from a snapping candy cane that threatened to ensnare her. The candy cane was as tall as Holly, its stripes pulsating with a strange life, twisting and writhing as though trying to break free from its form. More candy canes began to sway ominously, their tips sharpening into menacing points, like a forest of peppermint daggers ready to strike. The air grew denser, the sweet scent of candy and ginger becoming almost overwhelming, as if the magic was trying to smother them with its intensity. "Your magic, Holly. It's like it's alive," Jack said, his voice a mix of awe and concern. His grip tightened as another candy cane started to lean in their direction, its stripes darkening to a sinister crimson, casting a blood-red hue on the gumdrop-speckled floor, which now seemed to writhe and shift beneath their feet. Holly reached out tentatively, trying to connect with the pulsating magic. A shudder ran through the bakery, the gingerbread walls groaning as they shifted, growing taller and more menacing. The walls sprouted gingerbread arms that reached out, trying to grab at the pair, their movements clumsy yet determined. The ovens belched out a storm of sugar crystals, the tiny shards swirling through the air like a blizzard, stinging their skin and coating their hair in a fine, white powder. It was as if they were being consumed by a sweet, sparkling snowstorm, the air growing thick and difficult to breathe, each inhale laced with the cloying sweetness of raw magic. The sugar crystals seemed to dance and glimmer in the air, catching the light and refracting it into a myriad of colors, creating a disorienting, chaotic spectacle. Jack shielded Holly with his body, his ice magic flaring up to create a barrier against the sugar storm. The ice formed a dome around them, the sugar crystals clattering against it like hail against a window pane, creating a cacophony of sound that echoed through the bakery. Each impact sent a shiver through the ice, but Jack held firm, his magic steadfast against the onslaught. Holly, you need to control it. Find the harmony, like you did in the forest, he urged, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. His breath misted in the suddenly cold air, the ice barrier glinting like a frozen shield against the sugar maelstrom. The barrier pulsed with a soft blue light, reflecting Jack's determination and the strength of his magic. Holly nodded, her breath hitching as she closed her eyes. She reached deep within herself, seeking the core of her magic, trying to find the calm within the storm. The bakery trembled more violently, the gingerbread man toppling over as the floor buckled, sending a wave of gumdrops cascading across the room. The gumdrops bounced and rolled, their vibrant colors clashing with the swirling sugar crystals, creating a disorienting kaleidoscope of hues. The sugar storm intensified, the crystals forming small tornadoes that danced around them, as if performing a wild, uncontrolled ballet, each twister a whirl of glinting, sharp edges, threatening to cut through the ice barrier. The air was filled with the sound of their movement, a high-pitched whine that seemed to pierce through the chaos, a symphony of untamed magic. In the eye of the storm, a glint of light caught Jack's attention. "Holly, look!" He pointed towards the center of the kitchen, where a fragment of the celestial star spun lazily, suspended in the sugar maelstrom. It pulsed with a soft, ethereal light, casting a warm glow over the chaotic scene, a beacon of calm amidst the turmoil. The fragment seemed to call out to Holly, its light pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat, a silent plea for her touch, a key seeking its lock. It was as if the fragment was the still point in the storm, the calm center around which all the chaos swirled, waiting for Holly to reach out and claim it. Holly opened her eyes, her gaze locking onto the fragment. She took a deep breath, her magic surging as she reached out. The storm responded, the sugar crystals slowing their dance, the air growing still, as if the very essence of the bakery was holding its breath in anticipation. The gingerbread arms retreated, melting back into the walls, and the candy canes straightened, their stripes returning to their usual festive colors, the menacing points rounding back into harmless tips. Holly's fingers closed around the fragment, and a shockwave of magic pulsed outwards, the gingerbread walls shuddering before returning to their normal state. The giant gingerbread man crumbled, leaving behind a small, perfectly baked treat, its scent filling the air with a comforting, familiar warmth, as if the magic had been tamed and shaped into something wholesome and inviting, a reminder of the joy Holly's baking usually brought. Holly looked around, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "I did it. I controlled it." Her voice was filled with a mix of relief and awe, her eyes reflecting the fading light of the sugar storm, a testament to the power she had harnessed. The bakery now stood quiet and peaceful, the only movement the gentle sway of the candy canes, their tips once again rounded and harmless, like silent sentinels watching over the calm. The air was filled with the soft hum of the bakery's magic, now subdued and gentle, a peaceful lullaby compared to the chaotic symphony that had preceded it. Jack smiled, his hand squeezing hers. "You did more than that. You found your harmony." His ice magic subsided, the barrier melting away, leaving them standing in the now calm bakery, the air still filled with the sweet scent of ginger and sugar. The chimes of the bakery door tinkled softly as the last of the magical energy dissipated, leaving behind a sense of tranquility, a stark contrast to the storm that had just passed. The bakery seemed to sigh in relief, the walls settling back into their familiar, comforting shapes, the magic now a gentle, comforting presence rather than a wild, untamed force. As they turned to leave, Holly caught sight of a figure standing in the doorway. Noelle Kringle watched them, her eyes gleaming with interest, a mixture of curiosity and calculation in her gaze. She met Holly's gaze, a small smile playing on her lips before she turned and disappeared into the crowd, her red cloak billowing behind her like a flame, leaving Holly with a sense of unease and a flurry of questions. What had Noelle seen? What did she know about the wild magic that had just unfolded? Did she understand the power that Holly had just harnessed, and what did she intend to do with that knowledge? Jack, oblivious to Noelle's presence, tugged on Holly's hand. "We should check my old family home next. If there's a fragment there, I might be able to sense it." His voice was filled with determination, his grip firm as they stepped out of the bakery, leaving behind the wild magic and stepping into the cool, crisp air of Mary Hollow. The chimes of the bakery door echoed softly behind them, a gentle reminder of the storm they had weathered and the challenges that lay ahead. The streets were filled with the cheerful hum of holiday preparations, but Holly couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was brewing beneath the surface of Mary Hollow's eternal Christmas, a shadow lurking behind the twinkling lights and festive cheer, a whisper of secrets yet to be uncovered. Chapter 15, Frost and Forgiveness. Jack led Holly through the winding, snow-covered paths of Mary Hollow, his steps growing heavier as they approached the outskirts of town. The cheerful lights and festive sounds faded, replaced by a silent, frozen landscape. They stopped before an old, iron gate, its bars twisted into intricate ice crystals, the hinges creaking softly as Jack pushed it open. The Frost family home stood before them, its once grand facade now overgrown with magical ice plants, their crystalline leaves shimmering under the faint light. Icicles hung like frozen tears from the eaves, each one glinting like a tiny, frozen dagger, casting fractured shadows on the snow below. The windows were coated in a thick layer of frost, obscuring the interior with intricate, icy patterns that seemed to dance and shift in the cold breeze, as if whispering secrets to the wind. The garden was a wild tangle of ice-encased bushes and frozen flowers, their colors muted beneath the crystalline shells, like nature paused in a deep, frozen slumber, waiting for a warmth that never came. A heavy silence blanketed the area, broken only by the distant whisper of the wind and the occasional soft crack of ice shifting, adding to the air of abandonment and melancholy that surrounded the home, a silent testament to its forgotten past. Jack's breath misted in the cold air, his eyes reflecting the icy landscape like mirrors to a world he'd left behind, a world that still haunted his dreams. "I haven't been back here since I was exiled." His voice was barely a whisper, the pain of his past etched into every word, echoing through the frozen garden. His gaze lingered on the familiar details, the old oak tree where he used to climb, the frozen fountain where he'd skated as a child, each one a reminder of the life he had lost, the memories both bitter and sweet. Holly stepped closer, her hand slipping into his, her warmth a stark contrast to the biting cold. "We're here together, Jack. You're not alone." Her voice was soft yet firm, a beacon of warmth and comfort in the frozen surroundings, a promise that she was there to stay. She looked up at him, her green eyes filled with determination and support, a silent vow that she would stand by him no matter what they faced, that his past would not consume him. They ventured into the house, the door creaking open reluctantly, revealing a scene frozen in time. The furniture was coated in a thick layer of dust and ice, the air filled with the faint scent of peppermint and forgotten memories, a chilling reminder of the life that once thrived within these walls. Jack's gaze lingered on the family portraits lining the walls, the faces of his parents and siblings staring back at him, their smiles a stark contrast to the sadness in his eyes. Each portrait was a window to the past, a reminder of the love and laughter that once echoed through these halls, now replaced by the cold silence of abandonment. Holly squeezed his hand, her presence a silent support as he confronted the ghosts of his past. She guided him deeper into the house, her intuition leading them to a grand study. The room was dominated by a massive desk, its surface covered in a thick layer of ice, like a frozen sheet of glass reflecting the dim light. Behind it, a floor-to-ceiling window revealed a frozen waterfall, its cascade suspended in midair, a testament to the magic that once thrived here, a silent sentinel standing guard over the secrets of the past. Bookshelves lined the walls, their contents shrouded in a layer of frost, the knowledge within them frozen in time, waiting to be rediscovered. Jack's breath hitched as he approached the desk, his fingers tracing the icy surface, as if trying to reconnect with the memories locked within. "This was my father's study. He loved this room, the view of the waterfall." His voice trailed off, his eyes distant with memories, each one a fragment of the life he'd left behind. He recalled the countless hours spent here, learning from his father, the warmth of their bond a stark contrast to the cold that now filled the room. He could almost hear his father's voice, the echo of his laughter, the wisdom in his words. Holly stepped beside him, her hand resting on his arm, her touch a gentle anchor pulling him back to the present. "We'll find the fragment, Jack. And maybe, in the process, you'll find some peace." Her voice was a gentle whisper, her words a balm to his wounded soul, a promise that healing was possible, that the past could be laid to rest. She looked around the room, her eyes taking in the details, her mind already working on the puzzle before them, her intuition guiding her through the clues hidden in the ice. A sudden noise from the doorway startled them. Evergreen stood there, his eyes reflecting the icy surroundings, his expression unreadable. "I thought I'd find you here," he said, his voice echoing in the silent room, a harsh reminder of the reality they'd left behind. His gaze flicked between Jack and Holly, a mix of emotions playing across his face, the weight of their shared history heavy in the air. Jack tensed, his grip tightening on Holly's hand, his body instinctively preparing for a confrontation. "Evergreen. What are you doing here?" His voice was guarded, the pain of their past conflicts lingering between them, a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. His eyes narrowed, a mix of suspicion and hope warring within him, the possibility of reconciliation a fragile thread that could easily snap. Evergreen stepped into the room, his gaze sweeping over the frozen furnishings, each one a silent witness to the passage of time. "I came to help, Jack. I owe you that much." His voice was sincere, the harsh lines of his face softening as he looked at his brother, a glimmer of the bond they once shared shining through. He took a deep breath, his shoulders squaring as if bracing for a battle, but this time, it was a battle against his own pride and past mistakes. Holly stepped forward, her voice gentle yet firm, a mediator in the silent battle of wills. "We could use your help, Evergreen. But first, I think you and Jack need to talk." She glanced at Jack, her eyes filled with understanding and support, a silent encouragement for him to face his past. She knew the importance of this moment, the potential for healing and unity that lay within their reconciliation. The brothers faced each other, the air heavy with unspoken words and shared history, a tangible tension that seemed to crackle between them. Jack's gaze softened, his voice barely a whisper, a bridge slowly extending across the chasm. "I missed you, Evergreen. I missed our family." His words hung in the air, a fragile offering of peace, a hope for a new beginning. Evergreen's eyes glistened, his voice choked with emotion, a mirror to Jack's own pain. "I missed you too, Jack. I'm sorry for everything. I let my pride and anger cloud my judgment." His words were raw, a confession that laid bare his regrets and desires for forgiveness. He looked at Jack, his expression filled with a mix of hope and fear, the possibility of redemption a delicate balance that could tip either way. The room seemed to hold its breath, the frozen surroundings a silent witness to the brothers' reconciliation, a testament to the power of forgiveness and understanding. Holly watched them, her heart swelling with hope and warmth, the bond between them strengthening with each word, a bridge slowly mending. She felt a sense of anticipation, a knowledge that this moment was a turning point, a step towards a brighter future for them all. Suddenly, a glint of light caught her eye. She turned towards the window, her breath catching as she saw the fragment encased in a block of never-melting ice within the frozen waterfall. "Jack, Evergreen, look." She pointed towards the window, her voice filled with excitement and urgency, a call to action that broke the spell of their emotional reunion. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight, her mind already racing with plans and possibilities. The brothers turned, their eyes widening as they saw the fragment, a tangible goal that united them in a common purpose. Jack's voice was filled with determination, a commander rallying his troops. "We need to work together to retrieve it." His gaze met Evergreen's, a silent understanding passing between them, a pact forged in the heat of their shared resolve. He felt a surge of energy, a renewed sense of purpose that filled him with determination and hope. Evergreen nodded, his voice steady and resolved, a soldier ready for battle. "Together, Jack. Like old times." His gaze held Jack's, a silent promise of unity and support, a vow that they would face this challenge side by side. He felt a sense of rightness, a knowledge that this was the path they were meant to take, a chance to rebuild the bond they had lost. As they prepared to face the challenge, a sudden burst of light filled the room. A magical message materialized before them, its letters shimmering with urgency, a summons that demanded immediate attention. Holly read it aloud, her voice filled with concern, a herald of trouble brewing. "We are urgently needed at the town greenhouse. Something's gone wrong." Her eyes scanned the message, her brow furrowing as she took in the implications, her mind already shifting to the new problem at hand, her intuition alerting her to the potential dangers that lay ahead. The brothers shared a resolute glance, their fresh unity a pillar of fortitude against the obscure trial. Together, they pivoted towards the exit, their footfalls resonating through the icy home as they abandoned the specters of yesteryears and strode into the now, braced for whatever awaited. The atmosphere brimmed with resolve and purpose, an unspoken pledge that they would confront this new test side by side, united in their mission to safeguard their home and loved ones. Chapter 16, Greenhouse Conspiracies. The trio rushed to Mary Hollow's magical greenhouse, the urgent summons echoing in their minds, their footsteps crunching through the snow. As they stepped inside, their jaws dropped in awe. Holiday-themed plants ran amok, mistletoe vines snaking across the floor like living ribbons, candy cane stalks towering like crimson and white pillars, and ornaments blossoming like exotic flowers in a riot of colors. The air was thick with humidity and the scent of pine, gingerbread, and peppermint, a heady mix that made their senses reel. The distant hum of carols seemed to warp and waver, as if the very atmosphere was distorted by the chaotic magic. Jack's breath misted in the humid air, his voice a low whisper that sent a chill down their spines. "Something's not right here. This isn't natural. It's as if the magic is unraveling." His ice-blue eyes narrowed as he surveyed the chaotic growth around them, his grip tightening on Holly's arm. The mistletoe vines seemed to writhe with a life of their own, and the candy cane stalks loomed like twisted pillars, their stripes pulsing with an eerie, otherworldly light. "The magic here feels alive, but it's chaotic, almost aggressive. It's like nothing I've ever encountered before." Holly nodded, her eyes scanning the wild growth, her fingers tingling with a mix of anticipation and dread. The sugarplum bushes rustled ominously, their leaves shimmering with an intensity she had never seen before, as if the very essence of the plants was in turmoil. The air crackled with a tense, electric energy that made the hairs on her arms stand up. The magic seemed to be fighting against itself, a symphony of discordant notes that grated on her senses, a cacophony that threatened to drown out the distant hum of carols. "We need to find the fragment and fast. Before whatever's happening here gets worse. Before Mary Hollow is changed forever." Her voice wavered slightly, the gravity of their situation weighing heavily on her, the responsibility for their magical home pressing down like a physical burden. Evergreen pointed towards a secluded area, his voice barely audible above the rustling leaves and the distant hum of carols. "Look, over there. Something's going on. I can feel it." His brow furrowed, his senses heightened by the pulsating magic that filled the air, the scent of pine and gingerbread almost suffocating in its sweetness. There was an undercurrent of something darker, a hint of decay beneath the saccharine surface that made him uneasy, a sense of wrongness that gnawed at the edges of his consciousness. They crept closer, hiding behind a dense thicket of sugarplum bushes, the leaves sticky and sweet against their skin, clinging to their clothes like desperate tendrils. Voices murmured ahead, the tones secretive and conspiratorial, sending a shiver of unease down their spines. They peered through the foliage, their eyes widening at the sight of several Kringle clan members huddled together, their expressions serious and shrouded in the dappled light filtering through the glass ceiling. The scent of pine and gingerbread was almost overwhelming, cloying and thick, making it difficult for them to breathe silently, as if the very air was conspiring against them. Noelle Kringle stood at the center, her voice hushed yet intense, her eyes gleaming with a fervor that made Holly's heart pound. "The time has come to alter Mary Hollow's magic. The celestial star's power is waning, and we need to act before it's too late. Before our magic, our very existence, is threatened. We must seize control before the balance tips. We cannot afford to stand idly by while our home crumbles around us." She held up a small, ancient-looking book, its pages yellowed and its cover adorned with intricate symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The rituals in this tome will guide us, but we must act swiftly and without hesitation. The future of Mary Hollow depends on it. We are the guardians of our town's legacy, and we must do whatever it takes to preserve it. The others nodded, their faces etched with determination, their hands clenched as if ready for a fight. Holly's heart pounded in her chest, her mind racing as she tried to grasp the implications. They were planning something drastic, something that could change the very essence of Mary Hollow, something that could tear apart the fabric of their magical world and unleash unpredictable forces. The thought of their home being forever altered sent a wave of panic through her, the weight of their responsibility pressing down on her shoulders like a physical force. Jack's hand found hers, his grip steady and reassuring, his skin cool against her warmth. He mouthed, "We need to find the fragment," his eyes scanning the area, alert for any sign of the shard, any clue that could lead them to their goal. His breaths were measured, his focus unwavering, a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding them. The pulse of magic in the air seemed to be growing stronger, the plants around them responding with increasingly erratic movements, as if the very greenery was being driven to a frenzy by the chaotic energy. Holly nodded, her gaze sweeping over the chaotic greenery, her breath catching in her throat as she spotted it, an ever-blooming poinsettia, its crimson leaves pulsating with a soft glow, a beacon of hope amidst the brewing storm. The renewal fragment nestled within its petals, a promise of rebirth and restoration, a tangible link to the magic they sought to preserve. The sight of it filled her with a mix of excitement and fear, the weight of their mission settling heavily on her shoulders, the responsibility for their town's future pressing down on her like a tangible force. She could almost feel the fragment calling to her, its magic resonating with her own, a silent plea for rescue, a desperate cry for help. She gestured towards the plant, her heart in her throat, her pulse racing with a mix of excitement and fear. They moved stealthily, their steps silent on the moss-covered floor, their breaths held as they inched closer to their prize. Holly reached out, her fingers brushing against the fragment, its power pulsating in her hand like a heartbeat, a tangible reminder of their mission, of the hope they carried with them. The fragment seemed to hum with life, its magic resonating with her own, sending a shiver of connection through her. It was as if the very essence of Mary Hollow was flowing through her veins, a potent mix of holiday spirit and ancient magic that filled her with a sense of purpose and determination. Suddenly, Noelle's voice cut through the air, sharp and suspicious, shattering the silence like a knife. "Who's there?" The words rang out, echoing through the greenhouse, freezing the trio in their tracks. Their hearts pounded in unison, their breaths caught in their chests. They were caught, ensnared in a web of secrecy and deception, a pawn in a game they barely understood. The weight of their discovery pressed down on them, the fragment in Holly's hand a tangible symbol of the stakes they were playing for. The future of Mary Hollow seemed to hang in the balance, their every move fraught with consequence, their every decision crucial to the fate of their magical home. In an instant, they sprang into action, their movements fueled by adrenaline, their instincts honed by the chase. They dashed through the greenhouse, the Kringle clan members hot on their heels, their footsteps echoing like thunder in the confined space. The chase was frantic, their pursuers relentless, their lungs burning with exertion and fear. Holly clutched the fragment, its power pulsating in her hand, a tangible reminder of their mission, of the hope they carried with them, a beacon of light in the darkness that threatened to engulf them. The greenhouse seemed to come alive around them, the plants shifting and rustling as if trying to aid their escape, the magic of Mary Hollow pulsing through every living thing, a silent ally in their desperate flight, a tangible force that seemed to will them onwards, urging them to save their home and preserve the magic that bound them all together. They burst out of the greenhouse, the cold air hitting them like a slap, their breaths misting in the frigid air, their hearts pounding in their chests. Jack skidded to a halt, his breath ragged, his eyes scanning the town square, his mind racing with possibilities and plans. "We need to split up. Time's running out. We need to find the final fragment before it's too late. Before Mary Hollow is lost to us forever." His voice was firm, his resolve unyielding, a testament to the strength they had found in each other. The bond between them had grown stronger, forged in the fires of adversity, a beacon of hope in the face of uncertainty. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their quest to save the magic of Merry Hollow. Chapter 17, The Unity Divide. Holly darted through the bustling streets, her heart pounding in rhythm with the urgent magic pulsating through Merry Hollow. The town's enchantments were unraveling, and the weight of her responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders, a burden she felt keenly with each hurried step. She could feel her powers surging, the sugar magic bubbling within her, eager to be unleashed. Yet, a pang of fear gripped her, fear of the unknown, fear of her own potential, fear of letting her town down. She wondered if her abilities would be enough to save Merry Hollow from the encroaching darkness. The festive lights that usually brought her comfort now cast eerie shadows, reflecting the town's unsettled state, their once warm glow now a chilling reminder of the stakes. As she rounded a corner, a gingerbread man leaped from a nearby window, its icing eyes glowing with mischief and a hint of malice. Holly reacted instinctively, her hands weaving a spell that turned the errant cookie into a harmless pile of crumbs. The display of power sent a shiver down her spine. Her magic was growing, evolving, and she struggled to keep it in check, to harness the wild energy that threatened to overwhelm her. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, feeling the cool air fill her lungs as she pressed forward, the crunch of snow under her boots grounding her in the familiar rhythm of Merry Hollow. The smell of pine and gingerbread filled the air, a stark contrast to the underlying tension that gripped the town like a vice. She paused in front of the town's historic candy cane factory, its once cheerful facade now eerily silent, devoid of the usual laughter and warmth that had always welcomed her. The air was thick with the scent of peppermint and dark magic, a chilling mixture that made her stomach churn with unease. Holly steeled herself, her green eyes narrowing with determination as she pushed open the heavy doors. Inside, the machinery groaned and clanked, the candy canes twisting into grotesque shapes, as if tormented by an unseen force. She extended her hands, her magic flowing outwards like a soothing river, calming the chaotic energy that threatened to consume the factory. The machines slowly ground to a halt, the candy canes returning to their familiar striped patterns, the air filled with the sweet scent of sugar and peace. The factory's magic settled, and the air seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, whispering gratitude in her ear like a soft, gentle secret. In the heart of the factory, she found a glowing shard embedded in a massive peppermint log. The Unity fragment hummed with power, its light casting dancing shadows on the walls, painting a tapestry of light and dark that seemed to tell a story of its own. Holly reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool surface. A surge of magic coursed through her, images of Merry Hollow's past and present flashing before her eyes like a vivid dream. She saw the town's founders, their faces etched with determination and hope, and the residents, their hearts filled with joy and unity, a tapestry of love and togetherness that had woven the very fabric of Merry Hollow. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized the depth of her love for this town, for its people, for its magic. She understood that the strength of Merry Hollow lay not just in its enchantments, but in the bonds that tied its people together, a web of love and support that transcended any magic, any spell or artifact. Meanwhile, Jack raced through the frost-covered woods, his breath misting in the cold air, the silver of his hair blending with the moonlit snow that crunched under his hurried steps. The trees whispered secrets, their branches heavy with the weight of Merry Hollow's history, each leaf telling a story of joy and sorrow, of triumph and loss. He could feel his ice magic pulsating, its rhythm erratic, reflecting his inner turmoil like a mirror to his soul. The thought of commitment, of belonging, terrified him, the fear gnawing at his heart like a relentless beast, threatening to consume him whole. Yet, the idea of losing Holly, of losing this place he had come to call home, was unbearable, a pain that cut deeper than any ice, any frost that had ever touched his heart. He knew that his heart was tied to this magical town, and he was willing to fight for it, to embrace the warmth that had begun to melt his frozen soul, to thaw the ice that had long encased his heart. Ahead, the ice-covered pond shimmered under the moonlight, a mirror reflecting the dance of the clouds above, the stars twinkling like distant jewels in the velvet night sky. Jack approached the edge, his boots crunching on the frozen surface, the sound echoing through the silent night like a whisper of his presence. The ice beneath him groaned, the water churning with dark energy, as if a beast stirred in its depths, awakened by the turmoil that gripped Mary Hollow. He took a deep breath, his hands extending, his magic flowing outwards like a calming tide, a soothing balm to the chaos that threatened to consume the pond. The ice responded, its surface smoothing, the water beneath calming, the beast soothed by his touch, lulled back into peaceful slumber. He felt a sense of peace wash over him, knowing that his powers were still strong and true, a part of him as natural as his own heartbeat, as familiar as the rhythm of his breath. In the center of the pond, a shard of ice jutted out, the unity fragment glowing within its depths, a beacon of hope in the frozen night, a promise of warmth and light amidst the encroaching darkness. Jack stepped onto the ice, his heart pounding with each careful step, the rhythm echoing in his ears like a drumbeat, a steady march towards his destiny. As he reached the shard, he paused, his reflection staring back at him, a mirror into his soul, a window to his heart. He saw the fear in his eyes, the uncertainty, the longing. He saw the man he had been, cold and distant, a wanderer lost in the frost, and the man he wanted to become, warm and loving, a protector of the light, a guardian of the magic that had come to mean so much to him. With a determined breath, he grasped the shard, the ice melting away, revealing the fragment, its light shining in his hand like a promise, a vow to protect and to cherish, to stand firm against the encroaching darkness, to fight for the town and the people he had come to love. As Holly and Jack grasped their respective halves of the unity fragment, a surge of magic coursed through them, their bodies tingling with the raw power of their connection, a bond that transcended words and time, that reached deep into their souls, intertwining their fates and their hearts. Their eyes met across the distance, a silent understanding passing between them, a promise etched in the very air they breathed, a vow to stand together, to fight together, to protect the town they both loved so dearly. They had each faced their fears, their doubts, and emerged stronger, more united, their love a beacon in the darkening night, a light that would guide them through the trials that lay ahead. They knew that their love and their shared purpose were the keys to saving Mary Hollow, the lock that would open the door to a brighter future, a future filled with hope and light, with love and unity, with the magic that bound them all together. They rushed towards each other, their footsteps echoing through the town, the sound a symphony of hope and determination, a march towards their shared destiny, their hearts beating in time with the rhythm of their steps. As they met, their hands reached out, the halves of the fragment merging, sending a wave of magic rippling through Mary Hollow. The town's enchantments hummed, the air shimmering with renewed energy, the magic of their love a song that filled the night, a melody that danced on the very air, that whispered promises of hope and redemption, of love and unity, of a future bright with possibilities. Yet, amidst the surge of power, a dark shadow loomed, their enemies alerted to their success, the final battle drawing near, the drums of war echoing in the distance like a chilling symphony, a dark counterpoint to the song of their love. The festive atmosphere that once permeated Mary Hollow now hung heavy with anticipation, the calm before the storm, the quiet before the battle that would decide the fate of the town, the fate of the magic that bound them all together, the fate of the love that had blossomed amidst the snow and the ice, amidst the darkness and the light, amidst the whispers and the secrets that had long lain hidden in the heart of Mary Hollow. "We need to get to the town square," Holly breathed, her eyes scanning the horizon. The magic of Mary Hollow is reaching a critical point. Chapter 18, Showdown at the Great Tree. Holly and Jack burst into the town square, the great Christmas tree towering above them, its lights flickering erratically, casting eerie, dancing shadows on the cobblestone paths. The magical surge had drawn everyone from their cozy homes, townsfolk huddling together in their festive attire, their whispers rising like a symphony of fear and anticipation, breaths misting in the cold night air. The Kringle clan stood in a tight knot near the tree, their eyes darting nervously, hands clutching each other for support, the chill of the night seemingly forgotten in their tension. Noelle stepped forward from the group, her gaze fixed on Holly and Jack, her eyes reflecting the erratic lights of the tree like shattered mirrors. "You shouldn't have meddled," she snarled, her voice cutting through the cold air, sharp as a blade and just as biting. "Mary Hollow's magic is ours to control. Ours to shape according to the Kringle legacy." Holly's eyes widened in disbelief, her breath misting in the chilly night air, the realization sending a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. You're behind all this chaos?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, the betrayal stinging like a fresh wound. Her heart ached with the weight of the revelation, her mind racing to understand the depth of Noelle's deception. She had trusted Noelle, had seen her as a friend and ally. The thought that she could be capable of such treachery was a bitter pill to swallow. She remembered the countless times they had worked together, the laughter they had shared. It all seemed like a cruel joke now, a twisted facade hiding Noelle's true intentions. The memories of their shared moments turned sour, tainted by the revelation of Noelle's duplicity. Noelle sneered, her lips curling in contempt, her eyes glinting with a dangerous ambition. "The celestial star should have been ours from the start. The Kringles founded this town, our magic sustains it. It's time we took back what's rightfully ours. It's time we restored order, reclaimed our birthright." Her voice rang out, harsh and unyielding, echoing through the square like a grim promise. The Kringles around her nodded in agreement, their eyes reflecting the same zealous determination. They stood taller, emboldened by Noelle's words, ready to follow her lead. The air crackled with tension, the weight of their resolve palpable. The silence of the townsfolk was deafening, their whispers hushed as they watched the scene unfold, their breaths held in anticipation. Jack's voice cut through the tension, steady and firm, a beacon of reason in the storm. "The star isn't meant to be controlled by one family, Noelle. It harmonizes the magic, balances it for everyone. It's a symbol of unity, not dominion." His eyes held a calm resolve, his stance unyielding, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around them. He understood the magic of Mary Hollow better than most, having witnessed its power and beauty firsthand. The thought of it being twisted and controlled by one family was unacceptable. He thought of the townsfolk, of their unique gifts and the joy they brought to each other. That was the true magic of Mary Hollow, not the power of one artifact or one family. The spirit of the town was in its diversity, its shared moments of joy and community. Noelle laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that echoed through the square, sending shivers down the spines of the listening townsfolk. "Balance? Look around you. The magic is chaotic, the town is falling apart. We need order, and the Kringles will bring it. We will restore Mary Hollow to its true glory." Her hands clenched at her sides, her determination unwavering, her ambition a palpable force. She believed in her cause, believed that the Kringles were the only ones capable of saving Mary Hollow. She saw the town not as it was, but as it could be under her rule, a vision of order and control. The lights of the tree flickered wildly, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance in time with Noelle's words, reflecting the chaos within her. Holly stepped forward, her voice steady despite the turmoil within her, her hands clenched at her sides. "You're wrong, Noelle. The strength of Mary Hollow lies in its people, in their diversity, their bonds. Not in one family's claim. Magic isn't something to be hoarded or controlled. It's something to be shared, to be cherished." Her eyes met Noelle's, unflinching, her resolve growing with each word. She thought of the townsfolk, of their unique gifts and the joy they brought to each other. She thought of the countless times they had come together, their magic intertwining, creating something beautiful and powerful. That was the true magic of Mary Hollow, not the power of one artifact or one family. It was the love, the laughter, the shared moments that made the town truly magical. The memory of her parents, their love for the town and its people, fueled her determination. Noelle's eyes flashed dangerously, and she raised her hands, a dark magic swirling around her like a storm, tendrils of shadow writhing in the air. "You know nothing of our claim, Holly Evergreen. But you will. You will see the power of the Kringles, the true potential of Mary Hollow. And you will bow before it." Her voice was a chilling whisper, a promise of the storm to come. The air grew colder, the lights of the tree flickering wildly, as if reflecting the chaos within Noelle. The stage was set, the lines drawn. The future of Mary Hollow hung in the balance, and only time would tell which side would emerge victorious. The townsfolk huddled closer, their breaths misting in the cold air, their eyes wide with fear and anticipation, waiting for the storm to break. The town square erupted into chaos as Noelle unleashed her dark magic. Icicles darted through the air like arrows, and shadows danced, taking the forms of twisted holiday figures, nutcrackers with snarling teeth, snowmen with glowing red eyes, and gingerbread men with sharp, menacing grins. Holly and Jack stood back to back, their hands raised, magic crackling at their fingertips, ready to defend their town. "We need to rally the townsfolk," Holly shouted over the din, her eyes scanning the terrified crowd. "Our combined magic can overpower hers. We're stronger together." Jack nodded, his breath misting in the cold air, his ice-blue eyes reflecting the wildly flickering lights of the tree. "I'll take the left side. You take the right. We'll gather everyone." They split, darting towards the huddled groups of townsfolk. Holly reached Mrs. Clausen first, the older woman clutching her grandchildren close, her eyes filled with fear but also a spark of defiance. "Mrs. Clausen, we need your help. Your ornament magic can slow down Noelle's shadows, protect the children," Holly urged. Mrs. Clausen looked up, her eyes wide but determined. She nodded, standing with newfound resolve. Her hands began to glow with a soft, warm light, and the shadows nearest her recoiled, hissing as if burned. The grandchildren, emboldened by their grandmother's bravery, began to hum a Christmas tune, their voices adding a layer of protective magic. Across the square, Jack rallied Mr. Ginger, the portly baker, whose gingerbread men came to life, marching in formation against the encroaching nutcrackers. The gingerbread men, despite their size, were formidable, their candy buttons glowing with magic. Mr. Ginger then turned to the nearby hot chocolate stand, imbuing the steaming cups with warmth and comfort, boosting the spirits of those who drank them. One by one, the townsfolk joined in, their unique magics blending, pushing back against Noelle's dark tide. The toy shop owner sent his magical toys whirling through the air, their cheerful lights casting away shadows. The carolers harmonized a powerful melody that resonated with protective magic, and the florist scattered poinsettias that bloomed with defensive spells. Holly's heart pounded as she dashed back to the center, Jack meeting her there. The townsfolk formed a tight circle around them, their magic creating a shimmering barrier of light and warmth. Noelle snarled, her shadows clawing at the barrier but unable to breach it, their twisted forms writhing in frustration. Holly raised her hands, the fragments of the celestial star glowing brightly in her palms. She felt a surge of power, a connection to the star that was both exhilarating and terrifying. She looked at Jack, his ice-blue eyes reflecting the star's light, a silent promise passing between them. "Together," she whispered. They joined hands, the fragments merging, forming a brilliant orb of light. The orb pulsed, sending waves of pure, harmonious magic rippling outwards. Noelle's shadows shrieked, dissolving under the onslaught, their dark forms evaporating like smoke. Noelle herself staggered back, her eyes wide with shock and fear, her dark magic faltering. The townsfolk cheered, their combined magic surging, amplifying the power of the star. Noelle fell to her knees, her dark magic dissipating like mist under the sun, her once menacing presence now diminished and defeated. Holly and Jack approached her, the orb of light pulsing gently between them, a symbol of their unity and strength. "It's over, Noelle," Holly said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Mary Hollow's magic is not yours to control. It belongs to all of us, and together, we are unstoppable." Defeat etched lines into Noelle's face, but she said nothing, her eyes downcast, her ambitions shattered. The townsfolk began to murmur, their voices a mix of relief and exhaustion, the weight of their ordeal lifting as hope returned. Suddenly, the church bell tolled, its deep resonance echoing through the square, a stark reminder of the time. Holly's eyes widened. "The star, we need to reassemble it before midnight. The fate of Mary Hollow depends on it." Jack's grip tightened on her hand, his resolve unwavering. "We're not done yet. Let's finish this." As the clock began to strike 12, they rushed towards the great Christmas tree, the fate of Mary Hollow hanging in the balance, their hearts filled with determination and the unyielding spirit of their community. Chapter 19, Midnight's Chime. The clock tower's resonant chimes echoed through Mary Hollow, each toll a countdown to midnight, a race against time that Holly and Jack were determined to win. The townsfolk, united in their resolve, formed a tight circle around the great Christmas tree, their eyes reflecting the pulsating glow of the celestial star fragments. Each breath hung visibly in the crisp air, mingling with the shared anticipation that bound them together. Holly, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest, held the first fragment aloft. "This one is joy," she declared, her voice carrying over the hush of the crowd. She looked at Jack, his ice blue eyes steady and reassuring, a beacon of calm amidst the mounting tension. "It needs a blessing," she added softly, her breath misting in the chilly air, each word a delicate puff of white. The townsfolk leaned in, their anticipation palpable, the silence broken only by the soft rustling of their winter clothes. Jack nodded, stepping closer, his voice clear and strong as he proclaimed, "May the light of joy fill every home, warming hearts and bringing laughter. May it chase away the shadows and remind us of the simple pleasures that unite us all, from the first snowflake to the last carol sung. May it spark within us the delight of a child unwrapping their first gift, the pure and unadulterated happiness that makes us glow from within." Holly placed the fragment onto the tree, and a burst of golden light expanded outwards, a wave of warmth and happiness washing over the crowd. The tree's lights flickered, growing brighter, the ornaments humming with renewed magic as if awakened from a deep slumber. Murmurs of awe and delight rippled through the gathered townsfolk, their spirits lifting with each pulsating glow. The air filled with the sweet scent of pine and peppermint, the aroma of holiday memories and shared joys. Next, Holly took out the peace fragment. A hush fell over the crowd as she paused, searching for the right words. Mrs. Clausen, her voice soft yet firm, stepped forward and offered, "May the calm of a peaceful night blanket Mary Hollow, soothing spirits and fostering harmony. May it remind us of the tranquility that exists within each of us, waiting to be shared, like the first silent snowfall. May it hush the restless mind and comfort the weary soul, bringing the stillness of a quiet evening by the fire." Holly smiled gratefully, her eyes meeting Mrs. Clausen's with a shared understanding. She placed the fragment, and a gentle blue light spread, a sense of tranquility settling over the square like a soft, comforting blanket. The tree's lights steadied, their glow becoming serene and comforting, a balm to the anxious hearts gathered around. The air hushed as if the world itself held its breath, the quietude broken only by the gentle hum of the ornaments and the distant hoot of an owl. One by one, the fragments found their places. "Love" was blessed by Mr. Ginger, his deep voice resonating with emotion, each word carrying the weight of his sincere affection. "Love, to bind us close, to heal old wounds, and to nurture new friendships. May it fill our hearts with warmth and our homes with laughter, like the sweet aroma of gingerbread baking. May it be the tie that binds, the warmth that comforts, the light that guides us to one another." A rose-colored glow enveloped the crowd, hearts fluttering with affection and warmth, the air thick with a sense of shared love and camaraderie, the scent of sweet spices lingering like a comforting embrace. Hope was invoked by Tinsel Wing, her voice a melodious chime that cut through the night like a bell. May hope guide our path, illuminating even the darkest nights, keeping our dreams alive. May it be the light that leads us forward, together, like the first star that appears at twilight. May it be the beacon that calls us onwards, the promise that whispers in the dark, the dream that never fades. A silver light shimmered, the tree's ornaments tinkling like bells, their music a symphony of optimism that resonated through the very air, lifting spirits and igniting dreams, the cold night sparkling with possibility. The blessings continued, each fragment amplifying the tree's magic, the town's spirit growing stronger, more vibrant with each passing moment. Charity, faith, wisdom, each invoked with heartfelt words, each igniting a new surge of magic that coursed through the crowd like a living force. The tree was a spectacle of light and color, its power radiating through Merry Hollow, the townsfolk's faces aglow with wonder and unity, their hearts beating as one, their breaths mingling in the crisp air like a harmonious choir. But as Holly held the final fragment, unity, the clock struck the 11th hour. Panic flickered in her eyes, a cold dread spreading through her veins like ice. This piece was different, its magic potent and demanding, a force that seemed to resist her touch. She looked at Jack, her voice barely a whisper, tinged with desperation. "It's not accepting my blessing. It's like it wants something more, something deeper than words alone can provide." Jack took her hand, his grip firm and reassuring, his eyes resolute. "It needs both of us, Holly. Our unity. Together, we've faced challenges and overcome obstacles. Our journey has led us here, to this moment. Our bond, our love, is what will make this fragment whole." Together, they raised the fragment, their voices blending in harmony, a chorus of strength and determination. "May unity strengthen our bonds, weaving our spirits together, making us whole. May it remind us that we are stronger together, that our differences are what make us unbreakable, like the intertwined branches of the evergreen. May it be the force that unites us, the love that binds us, the magic that makes us one." Their magic surged, ice and sugar intertwining, a dance of frost and sweetness, a testament to their journey and their love, a force that could not be denied. The fragment glowed brighter, its light intense, almost blinding, a beacon of their combined power. Holly and Jack strained, their combined power pouring into the star, a torrent of magic that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. The tree trembled, its lights flickering wildly, the ornaments humming discordantly, their music a chaotic symphony of anticipation and hope. The townsfolk held their breath, their hearts pounding in sync with the pulsating light, each beat a silent prayer for the magic to hold, their eyes reflecting the dazzling display like tiny mirrors of wonder and faith. As the clock began to strike midnight, the final fragment locked into place. A deafening silence fell, a moment of stillness, of anticipation, as if the very air held its breath. Then, a blaze of light erupted from the tree, a dazzling display of holiday magic that engulfed Merry Hollow, a spectacle of color and warmth, of joy and hope, of love and unity. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated magic, a testament to the power of community and the bonds that held them together, a beacon of light in the darkest night, a promise of a brighter tomorrow. The town erupted in cheers, the crisis averted, the spirit of Christmas restored. Holly and Jack, their hands still clasped, looked at each other, their eyes reflecting the magical splendor, their hearts filled with relief, with love, with the knowledge that they had saved Merry Hollow, that they had come home, their bond stronger than ever, their future bright with promise. Chapter 20, A Very Merry Mixture. The grand Christmas party in Merry Hollow was in full swing, the town square a dazzling spectacle of lights, laughter, and holiday cheer that echoed through the crisp, winter air. The great Christmas tree stood tall and proud at the heart of it all, the restored celestial star at its peak casting a warm, multicolored glow over the revelers. Children, their faces sticky with candy canes and hot cocoa, darted between adults, their laughter mingling with the joyous melodies of carolers. The scent of pine, gingerbread, and peppermint wafted through the night, a symphony of aromas that whispered of comfort, joy, and the magic of the season. Amidst the festivities, Holly and Jack slipped away unnoticed, seeking a quiet moment atop the old clock tower that overlooked the square. The town spread out before them like a magical tapestry, the snow-kissed rooftops and cobblestone streets a testament to the spirit of Christmas that dwelled within each home and heart. The distant hum of celebration below seemed to underscore the peaceful silence that enveloped them, making this moment feel even more precious. Jack took a deep breath, his ice-blue eyes reflecting the twinkling lights below like a dance of tiny stars. He turned to Holly, his voice soft yet steady, carrying a warmth that belied the chill of his magical nature. "Holly, these past weeks have been a whirlwind. We've faced challenges that have tested us, uncovered secrets that have shaken the foundations of this town, and fought to protect the magic that binds Merry Hollow together. Through it all, one thing has become clear to me: I want to face every adventure, every mystery, every Christmas with you by my side." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small box. Nestled inside was a ring, a delicate band of never-melting ice adorned with shimmering sugar crystals that caught the light, casting tiny rainbows onto Holly's face. The ring sparkled like a frozen constellation, a symbol of their intertwined destinies and the magic that had brought them together. "Will you marry me, Holly Evergreen?" Holly's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat as she looked from the ring to Jack. Her heart swelled with a joy that surpassed any magic she'd ever known, a warmth that spread through her like the first rays of dawn on a winter morning. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Jack Frost, I will marry you." As they embraced, a shiver ran through Holly, and she pulled back, her brow furrowing as she scanned the town square. Something was amiss, she could feel it in the sudden shift of the magical atmosphere. Suddenly, a burst of magical energy erupted from beneath the cobblestones, sending a rainbow of holiday-themed magic into the sky. The townspeople watched in awe and confusion as the magic settled over Merry Hollow, causing small, bizarre changes that seemed to defy the very essence of their Christmas-centric town. A Hanukkah menorah appeared in the window of the gingerbread bakery, its candles flickering merrily alongside the usual displays of Christmas confections. The snowmen in the park began performing a Kwanzaa ceremony, their scarves transforming into colorful Kent cloth as they bowed before a suddenly manifested Nkika. Diwali lights started twinkling alongside the Christmas decorations, casting intricate patterns on the snow that seemed to dance with a life of their own. Holly and Jack exchanged worried glances, their joy tempered by the realization that their work wasn't done. Mayor Kringle rushed over, his cheeks flushed and his breath coming in quick puffs that misted in the chilly air. "Holly, Jack, we have a situation." Reports are coming in from all over town about holiday traditions from various cultures manifesting randomly. "We need your help." Marshmallow appeared beside them, his marshmallow body tinged with streaks of various holiday colors, a living reflection of the sudden influx of diverse magical energies. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully, his voice a soft, squishy murmur that seemed to echo the confusion they all felt. "I've heard whispers of an ancient artifact, the Yule lodestone. It's said to embody the spirit of all holidays, not just Christmas. This magical anomaly might be connected to it." As Holly and Jack began to discuss their next steps, more magical disruptions occurred. The candy cane forest started sprouting Chinese New Year decorations, red lanterns, and golden dragons dancing among the striped trees like a vibrant, otherworldly parade. The ice skating pond transformed into a Midsummer Night's bonfire celebration, flames licking the air as townsfolk, drawn by an inexplicable urge, danced around the blaze with wild abandon. The town's PA system began playing a cacophony of holiday music from around the world, a discordant symphony that echoed through the streets, a jarring contrast to the usual harmonious carols. The couple looked at each other, their resolve strengthening. They would have to postpone their wedding plans to solve this new mystery and save Merry Hollow once again. Their journey was far from over, but with their love and the spirit of Christmas guiding them, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Hand in hand, they stepped forward, prepared to embrace the unknown and protect the town they held so dear. Holly and Jack stood on the outskirts of town, their breaths misting in the crisp air as they watched the chaotic blend of holiday magic swirl over Merry Hollow. The once familiar snowflakes now danced with flickering Hanukkah flames, while strings of colorful lights twisted around candy canes, humming with an unfamiliar, electric energy. The scent of pine and peppermint mingled with the aroma of lax and sweet potato pie, creating a sensory symphony that was both enticing and overwhelming. Above them, the night sky was a canvas of competing holiday lights, casting a kaleidoscope of colors onto the snow-covered streets. "Well, so much for our Christmas Eve wedding," Holly said, her voice a mix of amusement and resignation. She turned to Jack, her green eyes reflecting the dazzling display around them. "I never imagined Merry Hollow could look like this." Jack chuckled, his ice blue eyes crinkling at the corners as he took in the transformed town. "Hey, look at it this way, now we have a whole year of holidays to choose from. Maybe we'll find a new favorite." Holly laughed, the sound warm and genuine despite the chill in the air. A determined look passed between them, a silent agreement forged in the shared humor and the challenges they had faced together. The weight of their postponed wedding plans was lifted, replaced by a sense of anticipation for the journey ahead. "Ready for one last adventure?" Holly asked, her voice steady and sure. She reached out her hand, a small, confident smile playing on her lips. Jack took her hand, his gaze unwavering. "With you?" "Always." They joined hands and walked back into town, their steps in sync, their hearts beating with a shared purpose. The streets of Merry Hollow were a whirlwind of activity, residents trying to make sense of the sudden influx of new magics. Children chased after glowing dreidels, while adults attempted to tame runaway strings of lights that seemed to have a mind of their own. The town clock began to chime, its familiar toll replaced by a cacophony of jingle bells, dreidel spins, and other holiday sounds, each one a testament to the global scale of the coming adventure. As the clock struck midnight, the chimes echoed through the town, setting the stage for a new chapter in Merry Hollow's history. The decision they would have to make about the town's future loomed large, but for now, Holly and Jack walked hand in hand, ready to face whatever magical challenges awaited them. The town's fate was uncertain, but one thing was clear: whatever came next, they would face it together, their bond stronger than any magic that dared to cross their path.